Hello, everyone. It is Tuesday, the 25th of August, 2026. And before I share a podcast that just came out, you can see here, it's Brett Weinstein's channel, posted a day ago. And the title Was Charlie Kirk Killed with a Drone? Question mark. Viva Frei and Jimmy Dore on Dark Horse. And so I'm going to share that and I'm going to discuss it as well because I took so many notes. I actually watched the preliminary hearings every single day for hours and hours and hours. And I took notes, so many pages of notes, like almost an entire book. And so even before the debate with Andrew Wilson and Candace Owens, I was prepared to watch. And again, as people from my channel know, like I shared that I was giving comments to try to fact check what Candace was saying throughout. That Andrew Wilson wouldn't have known. Why? Because he didn't even watch the preliminary hearings, like he said. I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, then why are you there? And his fact checkers, again, with the Crucible or whoever it was that he had, maybe it was Stephen Crowder's staff, did a terrible job, right? So when you don't watch the preliminary hearings and take notes, you got to take notes. Again, if you're actually invested into being a researcher, getting the truth, looking at the evidence, all of this stuff, what's being introduced, what's being excluded, and why, all of these things, and how can you debate or say anything when Candace Owens is throwing out names of witnesses, names of experts, and then misapplying different evidence with certain people that they didn't even analyze, right? And so big things. And so again, if Andrew Wilson had watched them, he would have been able to call that out. And so even Candace Owens, it's either she's being completely dishonest, so she's also lying to her community, right? But she's also so she's either being dishonest or she did not watch the preliminary hearings. And again, like how much time do you have in a day, especially with 10 million kids, right? And so I think possibly her staff kind of broke it up and maybe took notes or whatever, but whatever they briefed her on, they were wrong. And that's why you have to get one person, unfortunately, that reviews all of it, takes their own notes, etc., and then they can cross-reference with broken down by day, make those comparisons with what you have been what you have taken yourself, and then what other people have come up with. And again, so for people not to do that, if you're going to report on major events like this, I don't know. And so even with this podcast that just came out, I'm looking at the comments, and again, people are on Jimmy Dore's side, and I'm like, okay, so you're obviously looking at TikTok, and you're listening to comedians and podcasters instead of people that actually have a background and have worked in various fields that would make us better at collecting data, evidence, being able to interpret it, understand it, etc., especially Viva Frei. Again, I might be a little biased because he's Canadian and things like that, but he was a lawyer for many years, right? And so what he shares in this, I am way more aligned with what he's sharing. And then I'm going to give a summary and assessment that I broke down into, let's see how many pages, and I'm going to read it out and show you. 7 pages. Yeah, of a breakdown with the evidence introduced, the witnesses, key observations by day. But before I do that, I will at least start this video. And I'm going to try to remove the ads. And here we go. And I like Brett Weinstein and Jimmy Dore too. I like a lot of his stuff. He's very entertaining, but he is way off. And I don't know if it's because, again, there's a bias there, like a blind side, whatever, because he likes Candace Owens. But again, you have to remove that bias when you're looking at information. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so here we go.
Hey folks, welcome to the Dark Horse Podcast Inside Rail. It's going to be a special one. I have with me Viva Frei and Jimmy Dore, and we are going to be talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. I think in the interest of full disclosure, we have 3 of us, me included, who have landed in different positions with respect to what we believe may have happened. And the reason that I have gathered Viva and Jimmy is that I take them to be honest brokers who are reasoning from the evidence they see, and I presume would change their estimation if they saw new evidence that changed the probabilities significantly in their minds. So figuring out how we've landed in 3 different positions is the objective here. I will say at the front, it's probably the wrong thing to say, but this is not a debate. This is a friendly conversation to the death, and I hope to be the last person standing.
You're on fire today.
Well, some days are like that. I hope you don't mean literally. But in any case, let's get to it. Our first sponsor today is Sauna Space, which makes amazing saunas and therapeutic lights. It's red light and near infrared. Our second sponsor this week, non-GMO, gluten-free.
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I think what's funny is I don't actually think substantively.
Okay, so he starts. Sorry, it took me over 5 minutes to get to that because I think he front loads his ads. So this is Viva Frei starting right now.
Jimmy and I are going to disagree on even where we would be inclined to go by way of hypothesizing. And it's not a question of buying a Fed slop narrative or buying the official narrative. At some point, you have to just rely on the evidence that exists at the time to the best of your ability and question that which you think is implausible or unrealistic. And also understand if you believe things that you don't yet have any evidence to substantiate. And I do, and I admit that I do. My belief is that it was a shot that killed. It was a bullet that killed Charlie Kirk. It came from the low-C building roof, where people immediately turned after hearing the shot. I was watching it, the second after it happened and talking with people on the ground, immediately after it happened. And it's only after the fact that the idea of it not being a bullet even came up. Whether or not it's Tyler Robinson that took the shot on the roof, I would have zero problem entertaining the possibility that it was even Lance Twiggs or somebody else who took the shot. But I have great difficulty in the absence of any other indicator other than the absence of evidence, believing that it was anything other than a bullet. The argument that a 30-06 doesn't do that, I've never been convinced by anybody definitively saying how every round of any bullet will always behave, without exception. And so I'm operating on the basis right now. Charlie Kirk was shot. Tyler Robinson, if he wasn't the one who took the shot, was involved. He was seen on surveillance. His family identified him. His boyfriend identified him. Mm-hmm. I don't trust the boyfriend as far as I can throw him in terms of his statement that seems to limit his own potential involvement. Yeah. I believe other people were involved because other people had advanced knowledge clearly that something was going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked, and I believe, though can't prove, that George Zinn, the crazy old man who was found with CSAM on his phone afterwards, who immediately said, "I did it," in order to give the true gunman time to flee, is somehow involved in ways that we don't yet know.
That's the only one. I don't know about that. He was a crazy guy. He was known to the locals. He's been known as a crazy activist for literally decades, spanning from the 80s onwards, and criminal records, etc. And so, yeah.
But more proof, until evidence to the contrary comes up, to implicate foreign nations, foreign leaders, foreign actors, or even domestic actors, which I believe are very possibly at play here. You can't create evidence that doesn't exist, and you can only so plausibly deny the evidence that has been presented as of the present date in order to come to other theories. But that's the broad brushstrokes. Charlie was shot. If Tyler Robinson wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, I believe there was an orchestrated event that had more than one person involved. And I also do believe that there might be good reasons why investigators would want to limit that investigation and or not possibly explore other alternatives that might implicate foreign or domestic elements of intelligence or government.
Fascinating. All right, Jimmy, you want to lay out your position?
Well, sure. My position is I don't know who exactly killed Charlie Kirk, but I do know that there's a cover-up happening, and then people are lying all over the place, and that the official narrative doesn't make any sense, that a guy who, by Lance Twiggs' own testimony, they never talked about politics, and he never even...
Lance Twiggs lied during those that the 20th of April, I believe it was, like that interview, whatever you want to call it. Him having immunity, I don't trust that at all. I absolutely think he had more involvement, and with the radicalization as well. And if you look at Turkey Tom and others, like even my videos from last year, you'll see that people were speaking out, that were saying that that Lance Twiggs absolutely would talk about political, religious things, etc. And so he lied. And so that in itself, like I do think that he should be on the witness stand. I don't think he should have immunity. And yeah, I'll just let him keep on talking.
mentioned Charlie Kirk to him would one day wake up at 4:00 in the morning, drive to a campus he had never been to before, and magically find the one staircase that is not secured or being monitored by the police or his
And
security.
so the testimony that came out during the preliminary hearings with surveillance, with proof, 4 times that Tyler Robinson was on the campus that day alone.
Team, and then get up on, and then somehow have a 3.5-foot rifle jammed down his pants, and somehow make and walk up all those steps, and then get onto the roof, change his clothes. He's up on the roof for 8 to 10 minutes, and nobody sees him except people did see him. Again, just like Butler, people from the crowd saw the guy on the roof. You know who didn't see him? The state police, the local police, the campus police, and Charlie's $1 million security team. But people in the crowd saw him. In fact, there's video of it. And by the way, the FBI never contacted the guy who had video of it and saw him. So that's all part of the.
Even that I think is incorrect. I think that it was provided to law enforcement. That video he's talking about, showing someone on the roof. I had thought that it was earlier, but it was actually that day. And it was around the time that the shot was heard, like just before it.
Cover up, and then after he takes the shot, which they don't have any video of, he then Spider-Man's his way off the building, leaving a palm print, except the palm print doesn't match Tyler. And of course, he puts he then traverses on his way to hide the gun. He traverses a construction site, and the construction guy says his description of the guy doesn't match Tyler Robinson. It actually matches Lance Twiggs. The video, they don't have any video. There's video cameras everywhere. They don't have video that looks like him. They have video that looks like a taller person than Tyler Robinson. Again, they have video that looks like a much thicker person than Tyler Robinson, and they doctored the photos and the video to make it look more.
Lance Twiggs confirms a positive ID of Tyler Robinson in video and footage that was provided to him during those interviews, and even the agents in the courtroom again identify Tyler Robinson. And then it got to the point where the defense had to object, but he was saying, can you point to, Tyler Robinson and confirm that he is in this courtroom? And I think that was where they objected, if I remember correctly, but absolutely confirmed that he could positively ID him, cross-referenced by even his family and Lance Twiggs. And this is what I mean. You got to watch the preliminary hearings. Don't just get your information from podcasters, because it's just garbage.
Or like Tyler Robinson. I don't buy the 30-06 because the people that I've seen who know a lot about it, including the guy from the SEAL Team 6 who shot Osama bin Laden, said there's no way. And then he also was with an admiral.
There are gun experts and even people that I shared the footage with, etc., that are absolutely in agreement that it was a 30-06, that it was soft point. At first, people thought there was a possibility of it being Full Metal Jacket, and then they're like, okay, no. Upon further analysis, and what else is there? Anyways, I don't want to go on too much. Oh yeah, what's his name? Anyways, there's another gun expert that even at the time gives a good breakdown. But again, they're just not platforming these people. So Robert O'Neill, I'm actually surprised that he was talking about and considering it being a mic explosion. It actually surprised a lot of people. But again, people are completely discounting other people who also have special forces experience, advanced firearms instruction, etc., completely discounting what they're sharing and saying for, again, people that are more mainstream now and possibly didn't even look at the video. And again, he's also saying that he is relinquishing his assessment on others.
From the who said there's no way that it was a 30. And nobody can recreate that, right? So they've tried to recreate it. Nobody can. But anyway, There's that. There's the cover up for sure. Like they dug. Not only did they pave over a crime scene, they didn't secure it immediately. They let people go in and pick up stuff and move stuff. They let Farnsworth pick up the chair he was sitting on, which would have blood spatter evidence on it, and then go take the SD card.
Not Charlie Kirk. Jimmy Dore, again, he's never done executive protection, close protection, anything like that, and I have. And I have looked at so much of the surveillance and footage and things that are not even released yet. Well, I mean, from like an official capacity from the government. And anyway,
cards out, and then he lied about why. They lied about the. Then they take him. There's no ambulance. This is $1 million security.
Oh yeah, and then even like listening to some of the security professionals that had worked with them in the past, etc. A lot of it, again, it was a quick reaction time. So him to say that it was not, and then his questioning the ambulance not being available. I do agree that universities, especially for major events, should have at least one ambulance on standby. I actually don't know if there was one on campus, but just not one that was called upon to respond, because they did have the vehicle to transport him. And that is also common, right? That people will, in emergency situation, they will use a vehicle as a medevac vehicle. But again, ambulance would be superior because they have a lot more supplies and people that actually have like more advanced medical training in most cases than a typical, but they're not the typical security guards, right? You do have to have advanced medical training, I'm assuming, to be part of these teams as well. It's just part of the job. And so for Jimmy Dore, who's been a comedian, who's never done this type of work, it's anyway, I just think there's a bias, and I don't think that he has a fair assessment.
There's 6,000 people there. There's no ambulance. They jam him in the they're not doing first aid to him behind the table. They jam him in an SUV, and they take him to the hospital, where the FBI took all the videotape away. They moved all the people from that emergency room 2 hours earlier out of that place.
I don't know where he's even getting that information, because again, I don't know where he's getting it.
There's no witnesses, there's no video, and then they clean the SUV and they immediately sell it. And so there's just there's overwhelming evidence of
they don't want to use it anymore.
Cover up. And so, I mean, and there's lots more, right? There's lots more. The confession, there's problems with the timeline confession because he was already in custody when they said he went on online and confessed.
So again, a lie, and even the Discord conversations were taken by law enforcement, and where he had made a message. He sent a message on Discord around 8:30 p.m. on the 11th, and then it was a half an hour after that is when he, with his parents and Mitchell, I believe his name was, that where he went to the police precinct. So it was afterwards. This is confirmed, corroborated. There's surveillance, obviously, at the precincts. There's the timings of when law enforcement agents talked to all three of them. And then obviously Tyler Robinson individually to them. And where there was written testimony by someone who was law enforcement for many years, 25 plus years or whatever. So yeah, like he's going to do a written testimony because he knows how to do it. It's SOP. And the parents, they do have recorded testimony, verbal, but again, recorded. That's likely going to be coming out as well during the trial. Because again, the hearings were for probable cause and not to convict him yet.
The confessions on the text, he says, I wanted to take this to my grave, but apparently screw it. I'm going to give you every detail possible of how I not leave out anything on how I did this. So, I mean, we'll get into more of it. I don't want to just keep talking, but so to me, there's overwhelming evidence of a cover-up happening. And I liked what you said online, Brett, was that if Tyler Robinson did it, why is there a cover-up? And that's exactly what immediately the stuff they were saying didn't make sense. In fact, most recently, when Andrew Wilson said he had unforeseen text messages from Charlie Kirk saying he was afraid of a leftist killing him, he wouldn't show that. And he said he got it from TPUSA. He wouldn't show it. And then it's directly contradicted by Erica Kirk saying that she had his phone. By the way, why does she have his phone? Why does she have his necklace?
Oh my God.
Why were they allowed to get rid of his T-shirt? Why were there all those shards of plastic that looks like a Rode microphone pack exploded inside the car that Candace Owens got pictures of?
Oh my
so
God.
there's just, I mean, I can go on and on and on. I won't, so I'll stop there and just say,
so even those images have been enhanced, and like a pulse oximeter was I don't know what they were trying to say that was, and I think it was and again, look at my freaking videos on that, but it wasn't shards of glass or anything like that. It might have been like Kleenex or something like that. Like that was from like a fast food restaurant, but again, I don't recall. I'm gonna have to look at that. I am watching this with you guys. I had only gotten like a few minutes in before I was like, I'm gonna do this live so that I don't prepare in advance. Right? I think that's I want to test my.
To me, it's overwhelming evidence that
memory.
that there is a cover-up happening. And is Tyler Robinson involved somehow? I think that's I'll go, there's probably a 50-50. Yeah, I think he might be involved somehow. But I'll go with what Mark Garagos, the famous lawyer, said, that I don't understand why Lance Twiggs isn't a suspect and why he's not under investigation. Instead, he's being given a certain kind of immunity to testify.
Yeah, I don't
so
like
that. I guess that's my kind of position, that to me, that's an obvious cover up, and it smacks to me very much. And we kind of talked about this online about it being like COVID. And because anybody who doubts the official narrative is called evil, demonic. I had that guy Barnes the other day on Twitter saying that I'm just like QAnon, and so anybody when you're not allowed to question it, one thing I've learned in this game, that I've been in this game since 2008. And if it's one thing I've learned is when you're not.
And Jimmy Dore is, and again, it's not to take away, but like he's vaccinated and he's vaccine injured. And so as someone who's not vaccinated, who was calling out the possible lab leak, gain of function, Li Wenliang, what he was talking about in China, the Wuhan games, the VAERS, etc., like well in advance, and like moment to moment, day by day, what I was getting, because again, everything was coming, like especially once the vaccine rollout came, like again, it was like friggin' daily, just as dumpster fire. But anyway. And so why does he think he has credibility here, and he's using COVID as an example when he also fell for it?
Not allowed to question, that means you're over the target and somebody's trying to shut you up, and there's some fuckery about. And so anybody who questions is considered evil, demonic, QAnon.
And that's not even true, because so many people are like, I don't even know how many people, but whenever I talk about this case, like I get negative comments and people saying I don't know what I'm talking about, blah blah blah. And I'm like if you have seen my other videos, like I'm pretty out there and open to looking at any conspiracy theory out there or event. And but I'm not going to go to podcasters to get my assessments, right? You have to go to primary sources, evidence, archive data, talk to actual experts, blah blah blah, look at things yourself. Anyway,
ruining their reputation. You have to accept I'm
a moon landing denier.
The official establishment narrative. I'm not saying that Viva is saying that, but almost everyone else who's on the other side is saying that. And then they're all lying. Like they lied about Charlie's text messages, saying he was against going against the Israeli cause. All the influencers lied about seeing 4K video of him taking the shot. It's just there's an obvious cover up happening. People my spidey senses tell me are being paid to lie about this. And of course there was the guy who dropped his pants. I'm blanking on his name.
George Zim.
George Zim. He said he was paid to be a distraction. There's obviously, and then not even, I'm not an expert on any of this.
There are paid protesters. I'm going to look more into that, but yeah, there's paid protesters at every single event. I've shared a lot of information on that. So has Nate Friedman and others. He exposes this literally all the time.
I'm just saying the things that I have seen.
There are different organizations that do heavily fund groups with the intent to radicalize and brainwash and indoctrinate, right? So like this, the radical leftist stuff, the radical rightist stuff, like these are being funded by like the like different foundations, Soros included in that. Yeah, like billionaires that are funding these, and people even working within the government. And yeah, and so if we completely remove Tyler Robinson from the equation, and we don't look more into like the Discord messages, the people he was communicating with, the people that Lance was communicating with, etc. If there was any money given to them, by who, when, was there any like training involved with firearms, with people that like might possibly be linked to government, you name it, right? So there's possible avenues that people can look at, right? But if you completely exclude Tyler Robinson, then you're not, I don't think you're going to get to like the other evidence, right? So even with Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a fall guy, a patsy, by not looking at him and his movements and actions, and who he was talking to, and the travel and the this and the that, people wouldn't get to all the other information and get the other names, the other footage, to be able to unpack just like how deep the rabbit hole was, including people at the highest levels of government being involved in the assassination of JFK. Rambling.
Sure.
Anyway,
Everything smacks of the COVID cover-up, and it smacks of the cover-up.
Just one thing, Brett. I mean, what people say, it's a false dichotomy, mischaracterization of the people who are using the term evil and the context in which they're using it. Now, nobody, and it's like it's become the trope of those just asking questions to say, I'm just questioning the narrative, and people are calling me evil, etc. Nobody is ever calling anybody who doesn't believe the official narrative evil. Where the people start getting called evil is when they suggest Erica Kirk is in on it. Yeah. That Charlie's own team was in on it. Where people start getting called evil is when they start mocking Erica Kirk for wearing leather pants to the event, the commemoration event after he died. Where people start calling people evil is when they start throwing around accusations, impugning the people who are victims in all of this in the absence of any evidence whatsoever. That's when people call people evil. You know, when they put out a 12-part miniseries entitled The Bride of Charlie.
Good morning.
At some point, the behavior goes well beyond questioning the official narrative and does start to flirt with the realm of evil, which is making the most insidious, heinous accusations against people who are the victims in this until proof to the contrary, simply because you don't like them. Accusing Erica Kirk of human trafficking from a Romanian,
no proof.
What are those things called? Orphanage. I mean, at some point, Jimmy, you're not just asking, not you, they are not just asking questions. They are making evil accusations, victimizing the people who are victims of this until any evidence to the contrary. So yeah, at some point, it does become evil.
Okay. So I want to say a couple things, and then I want to lay out my position and how I get there. There is, I think I agree with you technically, Viva, on the fact that the term evil is reserved for a certain discussion.
Yeah.
But I have certainly experienced myself that the act of questioning the official narrative of Charlie Kirk's murder results in moral accusations against me. And I find that conspicuous, and I'm now recognizing it as a pattern from many of the battlegrounds that we have faced over the last 10 years or so, where there is a desire when you are in a logically weak position to shift the question to a moral one in order to avoid dealing with the contradictions that you're forced to defend. And so I agree with you that the term evil is being applied typically for a certain quadrant of speculation. But the idea that if I make a logical point, that what comes back at me is a moral critique is troubling, to say the least. We ought to all be interested in figuring out what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's profoundly important at a historical level. And that means that anybody who comes into that discussion as an honest broker and is sorting through evidence in a good faith fashion is part of the solution. We are sorting out the question, and there is no justification for leveling a moral accusation against us for doing that. So,
but Brett, and I'm not going to say this is a both sides issue, but at some point we're going to have to agree that if to the extent it exists, it definitely exists on both sides. I get out there and rightly question what is now basically seems like another debunked tangent of that Cowboy Steakhouse receipt, and people accuse me of being an Israeli shill, where on the one hand I get accused of being a Jew-hating anti-Semite because of my questions about October 7 and Israel's response, and the reflex is to now say I'm getting the BB bucks shekels, or that I work for TPUSA. Or that I'm a Jew and a Zionist. So they do this. It's happening on both sides. I think it's inorganic, and also people are doing it willingly. But to suggest that it's only or even primarily done to those questioning the narrative, dude, I don't even support the official narrative. And the trope is gobble the Fed slop narrative, Zionist, Jew, BB bucks, TPUSA employee, which none of which are true. So that's happening on both sides.
I agree. And that's why I invited you here, is that I don't think that accusation could possibly land with you in light of the way I see you navigating this. So I agree that there are moral accusations leveled by both sides when the question is analytical. And that, to me, that's a yellow card every time it happens. Our final sponsor this week is Helix, which makes truly fantastic mattresses. Our helixmattress.com/darkhorse. All right, so let me say where I find myself here. And as is often the case, I come at this from a slightly different perspective based on what I spent my adult life doing and training for. I'm a biologist who is fascinated by complexity. I like to go into a tropical forest and try to figure out as much as I can about what's going on. And the more paradoxical the thing I'm trying to explain, the more fun it is for me. Tropical forests do not cough up their secrets easily. They do not label things so you know what you're looking at. And so the toolkit involved in sorting out something in biology space that is unknown involves playing with all of the available evidence, which is always a small fraction of what you would like, and juggling potential explanations to see what fits best. It works when you have a well-trained intuition for what sort of thread that seems unimportant to begin with, if followed, will reveal something important. And those tools are not so different from a contested crime like the killing of Charlie Kirk. Now, I think we are haunted a bit in this discussion by the fact that there is a giant gap. You have the official explanation. You have Tyler Robinson, a lone gunman, shoots Charlie Kirk based on a plan that he formulated entirely himself. His motivation was internal, right? That's a very neat explanation of the crime and superficially plausible. And then you have a conspiracy of some kind in which Tyler is potentially involved, but there are others involved. And the problem is that as soon as you step across that threshold, things get very dark very fast. Who is it that would have the capacity to create to pull off a killing like this and to cover their tracks such that an official narrative in which Tyler Robinson acted alone would stand up in court? That tends to be an entity.
Cover his tracks all that well, because they found the rifle, they found the casings, they found the towel, they found other evidence
with a lot of capacity. And
of his home.
So now things get ugly. Now, I was interested to hear in your description, Viva, that you believe George Zinn was likely involved, that he didn't just spontaneously stand up and claim credit for the crime in the aftermath. Now, I agree with you.
I will look.
It just wouldn't qualify it as likely. But if you want to talk about anomalies, because everyone's like, paving over a crime scene in 4 days is not so wildly out of protocol that it's an anomaly. A man who happens to be there, whose whatever initial reflex is to immediately take credit for it, and then admit that he took credit for the being paid part of it. Jimmy, I've heard people say that. Apparently he said that to a nurse in the hospital. We all heard him say it was to give the gunman a chance to get away. Even if you just chalk him up to being a crazy old man who always goes to these events, that's his first reaction is implausible to me. But whether or not it's more likely, I would say I would not be shocked if I found out that he was involved in Discord chats with a bunch of LGBT furries getting his rocks off, and he happens to be a degenerate, sex offender, if not a CSAM offender. And then lo and behold, they also find that on his phone. But yeah, so not necessarily likely, but just that's an anomaly that requires an explanation.
I agree, and I will say that my key mechanism for pattern recognition is to look for anomalies, with the understanding that it is impossible that you would have a crime scene as complex as this without there being anomalies. In other words, if there were no anomalies, that would be weird. There will always be anomalies because weird coincidences happen. So the question is, when is an anomaly sufficiently...
I don't have any information yet that George Zinn admitted to any nurse or anyone that he was paid. Links it back to Candace Owens. Has alleged that Zinn told nurses at the hospital where he was treated for chest pain that he was promised payment for his actions. However, these claims have not been corroborated by police affidavits, court documents, or Zinn's own legal testimony. Official records state Zinn's motive was to be martyred and obstruct justice, which is stupid anyways, but again, he was crazy, with no mention of financial compensation. Zinn ultimately pleaded no contest to obstruction of justice and separate charges involving his child SA material found on his phone. So far, nothing, but I'll keep looking. But again, this is another example of Candace Owens with the I don't know, but I know, or whatever, and then people running with it. But again, I'm going to keep looking.
Conspicuous to count it as probably indicating something. And how do you hold that piece of evidence such that at the point that it peters out, you're ready to abandon it? I have thought often about George Zinn since this killing happened. And I've wondered, because it does strike me as a very strange fact of history. As I've dug into the story of George Zinn, it gets less interesting. So the event happens in Utah. He is apparently an addict, where he goes to all major events in Utah, frequently makes trouble. The reports, you guys maybe know differently than I do, but when I looked into the claim that he had been at the Boston Marathon bombing, what I find is that that's not true, or certainly not clear. And so I have the sense that there was a flurry of activity around this guy, and at some level, what turns out to be true about him, I would say, is consistent with two possibilities. One is that he was part of a larger organized something, or that he really is a sufficiently obsessed and troubled person who lies reflexively that, maybe he was there because he would have been at an event this size in Utah, and he spotted the opportunity he's been waiting his whole life for. An event that was going to capture the attention of the world. He's obviously attention seeking. So in other words, I'm not telling you that I have a conclusion one way or the other, but I am telling you that the more I've looked at George Zinn, the less I'm going to put my weight on that ice. I don't know what he indicates, but it might well be nothing. And I would also say that one of the patterns that is true and could indicate one of two things is something, actually, Viva, you've been involved in battling over, which is that many of the things that superficially seem incredibly...
Okay, so a little bit more. Again, I'm still not getting anything on George Zinn saying anything at all regarding expecting payment or anything. He admitted that he falsely claimed to be the shooter. He stated reason was that he wanted to create a distraction so the real shooter could get away. Again, a fucking idiot. Anyway, he expressed that he was glad he had done so for that purpose. Police have stated there was no evidence he colluded with or knew Tyler Robinson, the person later charged with the murder. During the hospital interaction and subsequent investigation of his phone, again, we already talked about the SA charges. Okay, so Georgian was not at the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013, and he never claimed to have carried it out or have been involved. What actually happened with him around that time, so a few days after the April 15th, 2013 marathon bombing, Zinn, then about 59, sent an email to the organizers of the Salt Lake City Marathon. In the email, he asked something along the lines of whether they needed anyone to help place bombs near the finish line. He was arrested and charged in Utah with making a terrorist threat a second-degree felony. He later said it was a joke or a flippant, irresponsible comment made in poor taste given the national climate after Boston. He apologized in writing to the organizers. He has a long local record in Utah of disruptive behavior, trespassing, and minor offenses, which is why police and prosecutors took the email seriously at the time. And so that's just to correct that. And again, there's others as well. And so he did say that he was, like around 9/11 during September 11th at the Twin Towers. I mean, during that time. But again, decades long.
Damning the paving over of the site of the assassination, which I do find conspicuous, is less compelling than it might be in light. I think you tweeted yesterday something to the effect of, actually, no matter what they had chosen to do with it, the claim would be that it was anomalous and conspicuous. So I think the paving was conspicuous. The communications around it seem strange. I don't know that my understanding of those communications is accurate, but if it is, it seemed alarming to me when I first heard it. But again, it's one of these pieces of evidence that I wonder if it has been overemphasized.
Like, it could be just wanting to not have it like as a biohazard, or people like crazy people like trying to like take blood, and use them in some kind of like weird, creepy, like witchcraft ceremonies or whatever shit they want to do, or like take his DNA to like recreate a clone. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm still looking. I'm more into George Zinn because, again, I'm not going to exclude anything, but so far I don't think they're correct.
I could say the same thing about the SUV, right? The SUV was scrubbed and auctioned.
But before that, Jimmy, I mean, I want to see what Jimmy's understanding is. Let's deal with the paving and the crime scene, because that's the one that I'm not even calling them the conspiracy theorists in a derogatory way. That is the one who people who deny the official narrative say, not only is it anomalous, but again, this is the absence of evidence. It's the evidence of the exploding mic, because the only reason they needed to dig up the soil, not because of the blood and the biohazard, was to get the remnants of explosives off the ground. Jimmy, your understanding of the time frame within which they dug up and repaved is what?
So they got an emergency. The guy whose testimony, who was there, who did the paving, said he was asked to get a crew that could keep their mouth shut, and that they could do they had an emergency paving thing, which is the first one I've ever heard in history. And and then when he got there, it was already dug up, and so they had dug it up 10 inches down, and then he came in and with his crew and paved it over on a Sunday in Utah, which is kind of crazy. So that's and not only did they pave over it, but people leave out that they scrubbed everything, the walls behind him, the overpass. They had people scrubbing it. I don't know if they painted it also, but they completely scrubbed the whole crime scene. And it's
you do that, right? So after like deaths and murders and things like that, people do come in and scrub the area.
Unbelievably conspicuous that they did that, especially with the testimony of the guy who was one of the guys who was called, and he said that this order, he said, came from the FBI and the governor, even though that there's other evidence that said it was the university who requested it be done. But that doesn't really mean anything because, of course, they would tell they would do it that way. So there wouldn't be a direct line. But anyway, it's none of it. That doesn't, I think the one thing that would make it, you said no matter what they did, it would be suspect or whatever you said. I would say if they taped it off and kept it and preserved the crime scene for a while, at least till he got his defense team in place so they could go examine it themselves, that would mean that wouldn't be suspicious. But everything they did was unbelievably suspicious to me.
Well, this is where there's two things. It's a tendency where the more detail people describe something in, it's an attempt to like make it look much more abnormal or much more complex. And like you can say, like, what did I do today? Well, I woke up, I made some coffee, I put some honey in it, and I stirred it with the cream. And you can make very simple things much more complex and suspicious by adding details, which on the one end might not be accurate and also might be just totally irrelevant, except to complicate things. First things, it wasn't a crime scene. And this is where I heard this and I was like, okay, it seems anomalous. Like, okay, 4 days to pave over a crime scene. And then you have to appreciate it's no longer a crime scene once it had been released to the university. And then you go back and you look and you say, okay, well, typically how long do they cordon off a crime scene when it's in a public location? And 4 days is not anomalously short. And the example I gave was the In-N-Out Burger in Idaho. They were back open for business in 6 days. I mean, I say I'm rounding it up to 6 just to not be accused of missing a day. They were shut down for 5 days. And so it turns out 4 days is not anomalous that much. It turns out it wasn't a crime scene. And so people use that term and not just falsify the debate. I'm not saying they're doing it maliciously. They falsify impressions. Yeah. It was no longer a crime scene. And then the question is going to be, well, why did they dig it up? Someone said to me, well, did they dig up the floor at the In-N-Out Burger in Idaho? I was like, well, no, because there wasn't biohazard that had been, soaked up into the soil. And so they dug it up, they paved it over. Why they do it on a Sunday? They want to get back to university, public stuff on a Monday. And there's no need to turn this into a mausoleum when this is one of the most public areas in the university. So, I mean, I was at first very suspicious as well. And then the explanation, not that it makes sense, it's that maybe there was an attempt to cover something up. And then the question is going to be, well, who would cover it up and why? And the only reason people want to harp on this is because they want to run with the exploding microphone theory that they had to dig up the soil so that, people couldn't do lab tests on the soil to determine explosives. And then you understand why the university might have wanted to do it, to avoid every internet sleuth showing up on the scene during public hours, taking soil samples to do their own independent research.
All right. I want to jump in here and apply my toolkit, because I hear what both of you are saying, and I see truth in both of these things. You have a troubling situation. UVU is going to be known for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's going to be the first thing that comes to mind for UVU for the rest of time, in all probability. They are an institution that has to figure out how to deal with that. And so I can imagine that there is a desire to scrub, absolutely everything on the university's part that has nothing to do with the cover-up. So when I look at questions like the paving, I have to hold it as one of two things. It could indeed be a cover-up. In fact, I think if this was a conspiracy if this was larger than Tyler Robinson acting alone, then it did not go perfectly as planned. And so the desire to make sure that evidence that reveals something inconsistent with the crime we are told happened, that desire would cause a kind of scrub the scene reaction. On the other hand, the university has a reason to do that has nothing to do with covering up the crime. And so I have to hold this as unclear. On the other hand, I do think what I can see, what I can ascertain myself looking at the evidence that emerged after the crime, the treatment of the crime scene was conspicuous, atrocious, and raises all kinds of questions that have never been satisfactorily answered. So that one is a blinking red light to me. Right. The idea that the SD cards were removed, it's never been satisfactorily explained.
Yes, it
But
has.
that obviously has relevance to the question of, well, what exactly did kill Charlie Kirk? That is important. The fact that you have a camera angle from directly in front of Charlie, from which we apparently have not seen the footage, that would likely falsify many hypotheses of the crime. That's conspicuous. The the moving of objects, basically, it was just a compromised crime scene from the get-go, and there was no attempt to recover it and limit the damage, or at least not an effort that was consistent with the magnitude of the crime. Now,
So he's not.
I will say,
I think he's completely incorrect, and respectfully, he's a scientist and someone that again has never responded to any major event like that. Not in war, not in law enforcement. Any of these things, right? Sartex, etc. And so I think how they responded was appropriate. It was beyond appropriate. And even with the SD card, that was clearly explained sufficiently enough in the court, right? Where because it didn't come from law enforcement directly from the camera, that's where they're trying to again make it where it's discredited. And there is other footage out there that wasn't seen in the preliminary hearings, but it's out there. And so he should be doing his due diligence, and even looking at the videos that I shared last year, where there's again other times where even people are talking and you hear the gun go off, etc. And so maybe at this point, I'll just share what I put together. And don't take my word for any of this. And if I'm wrong in any of this, please, just feel free to try to correct me. I'm going to zoom out a lot here so people can see it. Maybe 200%. Okay, let me see. How's that? Yeah, probably better. Okay. And then cross-referencing with all my notes. Okay, so subject, comprehensive evidentiary and strategic briefing, State of Utah versus Tyler Robinson, preliminary hearings. So preceding 4th District Court, Provo, Utah, with Honorable Judge Tony F. Graff. Hearing dates 6 to 10 July 2026. Just want to make sure I'm not on mute. Okay, I'm not. Okay. Prepared for review. Executive overview. This briefing provides a granular day-by-day analysis of the preliminary hearings to determine probable cause in the September 10th, 2025 assassination of Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, UVU. The state of Utah seeks to bind the defendant, Tyler Robinson, over for trial on charges including aggravated murder, which carries the potential for capital punishment. The prosecution's case relies on a confluence of digital surveillance, highly probabilistic DNA mixtures, and ballistic data. The defense's counter strategy focuses on forensic limitations, sample degradation, and exculpatory fingerprint evidence at the point of egress, not in the other places, point of egress. And by the way, there's still surveillance, but they're just talking about the physical. Chronological hearing breakdown. So day 1, the Monday, July 6, 2026, scene, architecture, and digital timeline. The state focused on establishing the corpus delicti and placing the defendant on campus. So the first witness, Chris Bagley or Baguli, I don't know how you pronounce it, former K-9 SWAT UVU senior officer at the time. This was his background, former K-9 SWAT and then UVU senior officer. Testified to the immediate aftermath and tactical clearing of the Lozay building roof under active shooter protocols. He confirmed hearing the fatal shot at approximately 12:23 p.m. Evidence addressed an empty pistol holder found during the sweep. Addressed Exhibit 2. So he addressed that because they were still doing active shooter protocols and making his way to the Lozay building. Addressed Exhibit 2, campus photo mapping and imagery tracking Robinson. And Exhibit 35, visual foundation of the rooftop scene and the disturbed gravel, what they call the sniper pad. Also on day 1, later on in the day, you had Agent David Hull, State Bureau of Investigation, SBI. Testimony served as the primary timeline witness. Hull reviewed 16 hours of UVU surveillance, Exhibit 6.1. He tracked Robinson on campus at least 4 times that day, noting changes in clothing, a visible limp, and a visit to an on-campus Chick-fil-A prior to the shooting. In court ID, Hull positively identified Robinson in the courtroom as the individual in the footage, prompting immediate defense objections. Hull also linked Robinson to a silver Dodge Challenger. Autopsy Exhibit 8, admitted under Utah Rule 1102, allowing reliable hearsay because it's a doctor. So Hull initially testified that Dr. Guajardo's autopsy report cited murder. Following a defense objection, Hull corrected the record. The official manner of death was ruled a homicide via a single gunshot wound to the neck. There's more I can talk about, but even with Chris Bagley, he was the one that was setting the scene, showing a lot of the footage and confirming the buildings on campus, where Charlie Kirk was, when he arrived on his shift, et cetera, in great detail, and a lot of evidence was admitted that day that confirmed Tyler Robinson was at the university and the buildings that he and his movement. And then there's even door cams and stuff like that that I've shared. So anyways, day 1 still, already talked about that. Anything else? Chris Bagley, his body cam, as soon as he got on the rooftop, the battery died. And again, that is something that he probably didn't want out there because he probably obviously is still like kicking himself for not having it properly charged. I don't know or think or there's nothing that would lead me to believe that he had anything to do with a cover-up, just because his body cam battery was not properly charged. But again, he's going to have to live with that, right? But there's still, again, a lot more data that was utilized to set the scene. So would it have been nice to have? Yes. Was it necessary? No. But again, it would have been really nice to have. Okay, so day 2, physical recovery and federal DNA triage. The state introduced the recovery of the staging items and the preliminary DNA ties. So first you had Agent David Hull again, gets back on the stand. He clarified the surrender timeline. Robinson sent Discord messages at approximately 8:30 p.m. on September 11th, then surrendered at a precinct shortly after 9 p.m., accompanied by a family friend, which was Mitch Mitchell, a former law enforcement detective, and his parents. Okay. Exhibits corrections. Exhibit 5.1, a letter from TPUSA's David Englehart was provisionally admitted by Judge Graff to establish a motive of political religious hostility. Hull also clarified that an ejected round found on a science building roof was a standard law enforcement drop. And again, it was still intact. And so completely severing it from the Robinson investigation. So people, again, wanted to take that and say, oh, there was someone else on a rooftop and, it that was the shooter. No, standard drills for clearing weapons after something has been deemed clear. And again, it was still intact. And so people that want to run with that, that was day 2 that was clarified. Okay, so witness 3, Sergeant Jennifer Famuina, SBI, crime scene evidence. So testimony detailed the recovery of the weapon, a Mauser 98 30-06 bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark towel, and a screwdriver from a wooded area northeast of the campus. The rifle was rendered safe. Chain of custody. The towel and screwdriver were routed to the FBI, the rifle to the ATF. Okay, so because of a timeline, Amanda Baker, she had to get on the stand because she had to go back to work or something like that. And so so Famuina went off the stand for a bit, but she's going to be coming back. Testimony confirmed confirmed priority for turnaround requests. So it was 24/7. They were working around the clock. When people give evidence to analyze, it was like a 200-day turnaround. But because this was such a high priority, people were working on this 24/7 for months and months and months. So for people to say that people didn't do their jobs to try to build this case and get the evidence looked at and all the witness testimonies so many different things, like tips that they were given, all this stuff that they had to look at and consider. For people to say that they didn't, do a good job, like, just to me is just, oh my God, what a slap in the face for these people that busted their asses. Okay, so testified to the DNA mixtures of Robinson and his roommate partner Lance Twiggs, Exhibit 31. So item 7, the towel, lower degradation for DNA. Okay, so 5% to 95% viability. So conclusive mixture of 95% Tyler Robinson on the towel and 5% Lance Twiggs. Likelihood ratios were cited in the quintillions, octillions. That positively identifies Tyler Robinson's DNA on the towel. Just to reiterate, item 8, screwdriver, high degradation, so 7% to 89% viability, conclusive mixture of 89% Tyler Robinson, 11% Lance Twiggs. The defense counter was, the defense objected to the screwdriver as cumulative, which was overruled by Judge Graft. Attorney Michael Burt heavily attacked the high degradation of the screwdriver sample, arguing that touch DNA on a shared household tool left exposed on a gravel roof cannot prove when. It's not if, it's when the item was handled. And of course, they were going to try to reach with that, right? No, you can't tell exactly when the screwdriver was touched, but it was most definitely touched by Tyler Robinson. Day 3, and Lance Twiggs. Anyway, so day 3, Wednesday, July 8, 2026. Okay, so arrest mechanics and cohabitant confessions. The state focused on post-incident behavior and corroborating suspect statements. Yeah, and I believe that might have been when Lance Twiggs, that interview happened. Okay, so witness 5, Agent Brian Davis, 25 years experience, SBI. Detailed the September 11th surrender alongside agents Terry and Smith. Documented Robinson's attire at the time of arrest: maroon t-shirt, dark baseball hat, jeans. Okay. The Twiggs interviews. The state utilized recorded interviews with Lance Twiggs conducted September 12th at St. George PD by Larson and Ling, and later on April 20th, 2026, in lieu of live testimony, which I wasn't a fan of. So Twiggs described a teary interaction where Robinson stated he wished he hadn't done it, and introduced texts where Robinson worried about leaving fingerprints on his grandfather's rifle. And again, that's all shared. The handwritten note. Prosecutors presented a note Robinson allegedly left for Twiggs. I had the opportunity to take Charlie Kirk out, and I took it. And again, that's just summarizing a million hours of testimony that day. So day 4, actually Wednesday was a shorter day, luckily. So Thursday, July 9th, 2026, advanced ballistics, federal DNA, and exculpatory prints. This session contained the most critical federal forensic testimony and the defense's strongest physical counter evidence. All right, so this is the day, if you're going to look at any of the days, July 9th, the Thursday, I would look at that one. Witness 6, Caitlin Oliver, ATF DNA Section Chief, Forensic Biologist. So Caitlin Oliver, who I was trying to share for the PBD debate, provided the strongest statistical link to the weapon. Swabs taken from the rifle, the trigger, grips, stock, bolt, barrel, receiver, the spent casing, the unfired rounds, and a Dremel tool recovered from the residence yielded a DNA profile that was at least 1 trillion times more likely to have originated from Robinson as the major contributor than from unrelated individuals. At least 1 trillion times more likely. They can't say absolutely. Okay, so the caveats: acknowledge that major contributor denotes DNA quantity, not the activity or timing of deposition. Mixed profiles with up to 5 contributors were noted, and Matthew Robinson, the defendant's father, could not be excluded from the bolt. But it was his family's hunting rifle that he got from his grandfather, and his father had obviously handled it, his grandfather as well, and others. So witness 7, Samantha Carner, ATF firearms and tool mark examiner. Testimony: the match conclusively identified the spent cartridge casing recovered with the weapon as having been fired by that specific Mauser rifle. Furthermore, tool mark analysis definitively linked engraved unfired rounds marked "Hey Fascist," "Catch," and "Test Shot" to the Dremel tool recovered from Robinson's residence. So for testimony, the inconclusive projectile acknowledged that the soft point bullet jacket fragments recovered from the victim's body were too deformed from impacting bone to yield a conclusive match, neither identified nor excluded. Connor stated on the record, saying anything but inconclusive was inappropriate. So it's inconclusive. And that's again the fragments, not the casing, not the other bullets, not the rifle, etc. Witness 8, Elisa Farmer, SBI fingerprint examiner. Evidence stipulation. Testimony examined latent prints lifted from a glass window near the northeast edge of the Lozay roof, the shooter's drop escape point. Out of the prints recovered, only 3, 11 Bravo, 11 Charlie, 11 Delta, possessed comparable value. So strategic impact. Farmer explicitly excluded Tyler Robinson as the source of those prints. The FBI subsequently deemed them inconclusive, right? So it went from excluded to inconclusive. This exclusion was entered into the record, but that is just for the palm print lifted from a glass window, not from the rifle, not from the ammo, not from the towel, not from the screwdriver, etc. And so what that does is it provides like a gap, but not a visual gap with surveillance instead, but with physical gap of like to give a completely perfect, a breakdown of exactly what happened. But of course, the defense really doesn't have a lot, so they're gonna just anyway. Friday, the 10th of July, procedural wrap up. So defense rested. The defense opted not to call any witnesses at this phase, preserving their strategy for trial. Judge Graff formally restricted the courtroom live stream to an audio-only feed during exhibit displays to prevent accidental broadcasts of sensitive material, correcting an earlier infraction. Video replay. At the request of the victim's family, Judge Graff replayed an altered, enhanced version of the UVU surveillance video, featuring zooming and red circles. That's the only thing that was altered, just to show, again, like a better picture, a more enhanced view. So Charlie Kirk's widow and mother could view the footage clearly inside the courtroom. Adjournment. The hearing adjourned without a ruling, because it was just a preliminary hearing. So final oral arguments on probable cause were set for September 1st, 2026. Okay, so strategic legal assessment. The bind over threshold, prosecution's posture. The state has presented a highly robust circumstantial matrix that easily satisfies the low threshold required for a probable cause bind over. The prosecution successfully layered motive and intent, the engraved ammunition, the handwritten confession note, and the Discord messages prior to the surrender. Means and opportunity. Surveillance placing Robinson on the roof, combined with the spent casing positively matched to the recovered Mauser. And there's even more. So forensic proximity, FBI and ATF DNA analysis placing Robinson as the overwhelming major contributor on the weapon, the transport towel, and the screwdriver. Trial vulnerabilities, defense's reasonable doubt framework. I don't know why that's in there. While sufficient for a preliminary hearing, the defense has successfully mapped the vulnerabilities they will exploit at the full trial. So the point of egress, the SBI's fingerprints exclusion, prints 11 Bravo Charlie Delta at the windows allows the defense to argue a break in the physical chain of movement, suggesting the individual who dropped from the roof may not have been Robinson. Despite the fact that you can see the video, and I've shared it myself, right, of him like dropping down and then walking away from it, but because you don't have that print. But anyways, but they're gonna use it. Okay, so the defense will weaponize the DOJ FBI policies against claiming absolute identification by emphasizing the high degradation of the screwdriver, 7 to 89%, the inconclusive nature of the bullet fragments inside the victim. Again, this can be typical, not outside the norm for soft point bullets. Presence of Lance Twiggs DNA on items. yeah, he lived with him. And I do think there's involvement with Lance Twiggs. So anyways, the defense will argue contamination and secondary transfer. Because the state relied on recorded interviews and hearsay for Lance Twiggs at the preliminary hearing, they will be forced to put him on stand at trial, and I hope they do. The defense will aggressively cross-examine Twiggs, perfect, regarding his DNA contributions to the crime scene items in an attempt to introduce a phantom third party or alternate suspect narrative. Anyways, that's what I have so far. And that's breaking down a lot of hours of preliminary hearings. All right, back to the show. This is a long one again.
Or the Rode mic. And actually, let me back up before I get to the Rode mic. Let me say, I also think that in having this discussion, we are hamstrung by the fact that it has become the alternative hypotheses of the crime have become synonymous with one person, right? And this is not about Candace to me. In fact, I think the point is the whole crime, it's fine for Candace to do what she does, but we now have the sense in public that the alternative theory is synonymous with what Candace is saying. And I would say, actually, I don't even follow Candace. I'm a guy with a scientific toolkit who is trying to wield the proper tools, that is to say, competing hypotheses for a pattern that we all observed for which we don't have complete evidence. And I don't like that every time I raise this question, the first thing that comes back at me is Candace said this, Candace said that. You know, that is not healthy. We have to have as many perspectives as there are. And the one test of those perspectives is how well they predict evidence that we don't yet have. So that brings me to the Rode microphone hypothesis of the crime.
Hold on. Actually, Brett, if you can stop there just for 1 second. Just to go back, where you say scrubbing the scene also carries with it a connotation of improperness.
No, I specifically don't mean that. Look, first of all, I've spent a good fraction of my adult life in a university. I can imagine at one of the places that I was either a student or teaching that a notorious crime has taken place. There's an immediate meeting of the administration, maybe the faculty, and the question is, how exactly do we go back to being a university, right? What if there's a blood splatter somewhere, right? And so the idea will be, okay, well, what we need to do is as quickly as possible make the space where this took place be an area that there's nothing to find, right? It is inherently going to be a place that people go, but the point is it has to take on its new form quickly. I can imagine that discussion, and I can imagine it at a effectively maintenance and janitorial level, that there's a whole lot that you would just decide to do. You would effectively want to freshen, revise, not, you don't want people digging up soil. And I think, you keep mentioning, I've seen you mentioned it once here, the biohazard of the soil. I don't believe there was a biohazard.
See, this is what happened. And he literally admitted it, that he's been in school, a desk job his entire adult life. And that's not to take away from his work. But how can you make assessments on an assassination when you have not even been of service in law enforcement, in the military, in any way, a lawyer, et cetera, et cetera? It just blows my mind that people have the nerve to think that just because they're really, really smart in science. And by the way, I'd be interested to know what his interpretations are of the Earth and the cosmos and this musical universe, and where he believes pi and phi and the Fibonacci numbers, etc., are derived from. So anyway, I wish that they would platform more actual experts, because Viva Frei is the most credible out of this group, and they're going to talk about the mic explosion. I'm going to keep this video going because it's very interesting, and no one's yelling and screaming at each other, which I find very enjoyable. And then I'll share the mic explosion debunked video again, that if you already watched my channel last week or the week before, I already shared it, but it's timely.
at all, right? To the extent that blood may have landed on the ground, there's no biohazard issue after a very short
Never been a war.
period of
Never
time. But I can also imagine people digging. As long as it's not paved, you can imagine people digging for something,
Exactly.
the way people will have a moon rock from the moon landing. People would
There
want
you go.
some memento of this crime,
Your
and
moon
you want to
landing
just prevent that
believer.
from happening. So I can imagine that occurring. But I can't imagine not protecting this crime scene. And given that the crime scene was compromised, I cannot imagine anything other than an obsessive effort to try to reconstruct exactly what was there, including the SD cards, all camera angles, to figure out why it is that there was an inability to broadcast during the immediate instance of the event. There's lots of stuff that I didn't see. And I would say, I have a kind of an informal list of dogs that didn't bark. Right? There's the evidence we have, and then there's the evidence that we don't have. And let me give you an example. Or maybe I should let you respond to that, Viva, since I cut you off.
Well, I'll say one thing. To the extent you're using scrub as in to purify and not to alter, then fine, or to tamper. When Jimmy says, what they could have done is taped off the crime scene and then cordoned it off until the defendant gets a defense, that would be, from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, that would be an anomalous treatment of a crime scene to the point where everyone would say, this isn't how you do it. And the only reason they've done that is so they can go and purely, totally scrub the crime scene, modify it, falsify it, whatever. I don't think there's, I don't know how many cases there have been where you indefinitely close off a crime scene until the defendant gets his defense team. And that's at the time you don't even have a defendant at that point, and you might never get one. So I think that would have been even more anomalous. And like I posited in my post, if they had done that, then the other people of the world would say, that's evidence of conspiracy. They've now had 2 months.
Okay, and so just to clarify that, because I like Viva's point, and so the main crime scene areas at Utah Valley University were released by law enforcement on September 12th, 2025. But here's the timeline. So September 10th, approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot in the courtyard near the Losey building. September 10th through 12th, the relevant areas: courtyard where Kirk was speaking, the Losey building, the rooftop, Teller Robinson's position, and the nearby wooded area where the rifle was recovered remained under the control of external law enforcement agencies, the FBI, state investigators, etc., for evidence collection and processing. September 12th, the scene was officially released back to Utah Valley University. This is a date supported by UVU records obtained via GRAMA requests, including emergency cleanup orders and facilities declarations. After release, UVU began cleanup, initial washdown, paving the courtyard area where the tent had stood, followed in the subsequent days, roughly September 14th through 16th. The campus itself was closed September 11th through 14th. Staff returned on Monday, September 15th, and class resumed later that week. Some secondary accounts citing on-the-ground sources have said the scene stayed secured through the 12th and was fully released on the 13th, with physical work beginning the 14th. The primary documentation from the university points to the formal release occurring on the 12th. Okay, so there you go.
Scrub it and to falsify it and to plant the evidence that they wanted. So that wouldn't resolve anything.
Well, look, can I just respond and say that they did have a defendant, because Takash Patel had that Friday at 33 hours after he said, we got him. We got him. That's what he said. So they did have a defendant, and to Brett's point, from the moment it happened, the crime scene was contaminated immediately and continuously, right? And to the point where they're not even securing evidence. Like, why was his phone given back to Erica Kirk? Why was his necklace, which would be, you think, 100% evidence that should be controlled, is given back to her?
It's his wife.
Why was the bloody mic was given back to her so they could auction it off to make money? There's just so many, and people were allowed to take the SD cards. People were allowed to move the microphone. People were allowed to move the chair. Nobody was securing that thing whatsoever. And then the cop who goes up on the roof and finds the the screwdriver. Just mysteriously, his body camera turns off, which is ridiculous. And then he doesn't even know who the other cop was on the roof with him, except we were able to find that out like in half a day. But he didn't. He hadn't been able to find it out for 11 months or whatever. So that crime scene, they allowed it to be completely contaminated, and also the evidence. So these are all big, to me, these are big red flags that show me that there's a cover up. And the biggest thing that shows me there's a cover up, I forgot to mention this, was that I just interviewed Joe Kent on my show on Friday. And he said he was the head of counterterrorism, and he was looking in to see if there was some foreign
body cam too. It's fairly new, and there are more and more law enforcement departments that are starting to use body cams more and more. But yeah, that's relatively new.
Involvement in this, the biggest assassination in my lifetime, right? So the biggest assassination in my lifetime, you'd think they would try to treat that place a little bit special, but no, okay, I'll go. But Joe Kent said that he was stopped from investigating it. So it's obvious that the FBI and the cops are not actually investigating it, and that the one guy who's at the tippy top of government of investigating stuff wanted to, and he was stopped. Not only did he tell me he was stopped, he told me who stopped him. Kash Patel. Kash Patel stopped him. So to me, that's, again, right there. This is just crazy, obvious cover-up. Oh, I'll throw it back to you, Brett.
Yeah, well, I agree with much of what you just said. And
Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, they are grifters. And based on Dan Bongino going back into government and, again, just bending the knee, like, I'm very disappointed. And Kash Patel, too.
This is what I'm responding to, is that what I see is we do not have an FBI. And in the absence of an FBI, what you have is this Keystone Cop stuff, which, were there a conspiracy, would be a feature, not a bug, right? The contamination of the crime scene is useful if what you're trying to do is confuse the question, leaving only the lone gunman hypothesis standing. So I see many of those precise anomalies, and I want to point to one. You guys can tell me, maybe you're tracking some thread that I'm not, but one of the dogs that didn't bark in this case for me is the Rode microphone. Now, I heard the hypothesis that it had been used to kill Charlie, that it had exploded. I, of course, made the connection to the pager attack on Hezbollah. But in thinking about that hypothesis of the crime, I realized, I think, someone else could point out that I've done the logic incorrectly, but that hypothesis of the crime does not add up given the technology that we are told to imagine might have been used. In other words, a shaped charge would have behaved very differently than what we saw. We would have had smoke, the equal and opposite reaction of the exploding mic would have been visible in some way other than a disturbance of the shirt. So I convinced myself that can't be the explanation given the technology that we imagine might have been used there. Doesn't mean somebody doesn't have another technology that cancels those forces the way a compensator cancels the muzzle rise on a rifle. But I don't know what the technology would be. And so I have to demote that hypothesis because it does not comport with the evidence we did see. On the other hand, here's the dog that didn't bark. Where's the damn mic?
Where is it?
Where's the damn mic? And here's why that matters. So that mic does two things. That mic broadcasts a Wi-Fi signal that goes presumably to one of the cameras that's running. It sends that feed right into the camera so that they stitch up the video and the audio stitch up together. But it also records a 32-bit float file on the device itself in case the Wi-Fi fails. That piece of evidence, that file, would be absolutely vital in either proving that the shot came from where they said it came from or disproving it. That file is an incredibly powerful piece of evidence, not only because it records the sound from the precise location of Charlie's body, but because 32-bit float contains a tremendous amount of resolution. In other words, the amount that could be recovered from that file that would allow you to do a detailed sonic analysis is tremendous. So the question is, maybe they have it. Maybe they've analyzed that file, but we've heard nothing about it. And I don't know what to make of glass shards. I don't know what to make of the disturbance of the shirt, but I do find the absence of that device utterly conspicuous, and it hasn't gotten enough attention, in my opinion, maybe because people assume it exploded.
Well, it's interesting. You know, in every cover-up, you're going to want to have the useful noise, which is going to distract people from the actual cover-up with nonsense. And, you know, in as much as people misunderstood my drawing a comparison to Sandy Hook, there are still people who out there seriously,
explain the fragments that were recovered in the body and the spent casing, et cetera, the sound that was made.
Put forward that Charlie Kirk didn't die, that it was CGI, that, you know, they hauled him off and he's in witness protection. And there are people who seriously entertain that idea. The question is, at what point do you just write off the patently insane ideas? And at what point do the people who might want to muddy the waters to actually cover up the cover-up promote, entertain, or legitimize those ideas?
Yeah.
So that now, because every operation has this,
Yeah.
And it's true that there has been no confirmation as to where the microphone is. It's not immediately write off the exploding mic. The exploding microphone theory is based on negative evidence. It can never be disproven because all that it's predicated on is a 30-06 didn't do it because it never does it, and therefore that must be it because shirts don't move this way. And I saw some broken glass in a car, as if after the thing goes off, you're going to have broken glass that's going to be in the car. But it's true that you don't have the microphone. Where do you go from there? To entertain the idea that it was a shape-charged microphone exploding device because Israel did it with terrorist leaders in Hamas and the West Bank, or Gaza and the West Bank, the only reason they did it in that circumstance was because of a total inaccessibility of getting in there to do it with a sniper or with, a more immediate manner. Why anyone thinks, all right, the Losi building roof was not covered. It was not protected. Why was it? It was the easiest access point. That's part of the conspiracy. And so they went with the most insanely elaborate, risky, not achieving the objective, easily traceable exploding microphone, as opposed to just getting a gunman on the roof. I mean, that's where I think you have conspiracy theories that are deliberately entertained, put forward, or promoted in order to distract from what the very cover-up might be, which is why that roof was left totally unsecured, and everything that flows from that. But Jimmy, sorry.
That's a great point. So they will often, the people who are doing a cover-up will promote crazy theories to discredit that there's a cover-up, right?
Or even better.
All right. So I needed to get this up here. Okay, so many things to go through. Okay, so this was published December 22nd, 2025 by Kara Vaught, The Washington Post. At America Fest, the post-Kirk MAGA movement met at a crossroads. So Phoenix, the microphone Charlie Kirk had been holding when he was fatally shot was displayed on stage, encased in glass under a spotlight. Okay, so we do have that. So it's the microphone he was holding when he was fatally shot. The t-shirt design that he was wearing, Freedom, and a sans serif bold across the chest, was for sale in at least 4 colors. Okay, so there's that. And was it the real one? I don't know. Let's see. stage. Okay, and again, not the most reputable thing to use an AI, but I've been trying to confirm in other locations as well. So the display occurred at America Fest 2025, Turning Point USA's annual conference. A microphone associated with Charlie Kirk described in reporting as the one he was holding when he was shot. Okay, so that's doesn't have to do with the one that he was wearing. Okay, so I'll move on to that one now. Carry on with the video.
They're half-truths that
Right.
take out some important piece of information by fusing it to something insane.
Right. So I'll just very quickly say why some people made that connection, right? Because of the way his T-shirt moved, right? That nobody, again, I'll go back to the SEAL Team 6 guy. He said, I've killed people, I've shot people for this country, and I've never seen the T-shirt move like that. And no one has actually explained how that happened, but
Many people
the suspicious things that lead up to that theory is that there was a month before, there was that guy Harrison who tweeted out that I've been told by people close to Charlie Kirk, he's afraid that Israel's going to kill him if he turns on them. And then the meeting at the Hamptons, they denied that Bibi called in and offered him $150 million. That's been proven. They also denied that Charlie had the night before texted that I have no choice but to leave the Israel cause. I can no longer support so they lied about all that stuff. Benjamin Netanyahu comes out 39 minutes on the other side of the world in the middle of fighting a couple of wars. 39 minutes comes out and tweets about Charlie Kirk's assassination and the fact that they have a history of using this kind of device. So it's not like crazy that came out of nowhere. There's a lot of things that point that could be possible. And the fact what Brent just said, that where is it and where is that recording? Like, so that would be very helpful. The recording would still be on that mic. And where is that recording mic thing? So, and of course the shards of glass then also in that car lead to, they said, that the first explanation was
all he's doing is watching Candace Owens, and he should be doing a little bit more work. So I'm going to share this, and then point two. Okay, so no official statement. Let me see here. Where's the one I wanted to use here? Okay, so the official forensic report. In the actual legal proceedings, the exploding mic theory does not exist. The primary evidentiary record definitively contradicts it. The autopsy, Dr. Guajardo, and again, yeah, he had a furry wife. Weird, but yeah, looking at that. But again, certified the official cause of death as a gunshot wound to the neck, which is quoted in the search warrant affidavits. Physical evidence. A bullet jacket fragment was physically recovered from Kirk's body during the autopsy. Multiple fragments. This fragment was tested by ATF ballistics expert Samantha Carner. Absence of blast evidence. There's no documentation of explosive residue, blast damage, or a detonated device in any of the search warrants, crime scene logs, or forensic testimony, or in any of the footage that has been released, whether it be through government or through people just sharing information, people that were in the crowd or other.
However, that you see an incendiary explosion, you see the incendiary smoke. There's no question, you can't deny it. And then you see the exit wound.
I don't know, Stewie. I have some questions. So I'm sure by now you've all seen the latest theory regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. As you saw Stu Peters say, he definitively thinks that the lav mic on Charlie Kirk's shirt was actually an incendiary device, a bomb that went off, and that's actually what killed Charlie. If you're not familiar with them, this is what the lav mics look like. You can see the magnet on the outside of the piece of clothing, and then the microphone and electronics on the inside. And these mics are used to record audio independently from your camera so that you could sync up the audio later and it's really clear and crisp. And Charlie wore these all the time. It's actually the exact same unit. there's no doubt that Charlie was wearing this exact mic on the day he was assassinated. You could see him here fidgeting with it. You could even see the weight of the microphone actually pulling on his shirt. Okay, so there's no doubt that Charlie really was wearing one of those lav mics like Stu claims, but that's not the problem. The problem is that Stu makes two very distinct claims that we need to take a look at.
Oh, there's just no question at all whatsoever that you see an incendiary explosion. You see the incendiary smoke. There's no question. You can't deny it. Check the trajectory of the round that was deployed from that lavalier lapel mic. That went directly from Charlie Kirk's lapel. That went directly from underneath Charlie Kirk's white t-shirt up through his neck and created the exit wound that we told you was an exit wound immediately when we saw that exit wound. First we had exploding pagers, now we have exploding mics.
Okay, so did you catch it? Stu Peters claims that the lav mic on Charlie's shirt was actually an incendiary device. And not only did that bomb explode, just like the pagers, which Israel used to take out a bunch of Hamas terrorists about a year ago, but that mic also shot a round through Charlie Kirk's neck, underneath his t-shirt, through his neck, and out the other side. Because Stu Peters claims that the hole we saw is an exit wound from whatever that mic shot through the neck. But do you guys even remember the pager bombs and what they looked like? But let's be honest, those pager bombs did not look anything like what happened to Charlie. Charlie's shirt just gets puffed up as if some air from maybe a bullet hitting him puffs his shirt up. I don't know. But he definitely doesn't get blown apart like the pager bomb guys. But then to make it make sense, because we all saw what happened to his neck, there's a bomb in the mic that shoots a bullet that goes under this side, out the other side. But then there's no blood on his shirt on this side where the bullet must have entered, right? There's only blood on this side. We all saw what happened to Charlie. We saw that after he got shot, his whole body stiffened up. And everybody, every expert out there has said that the only way that can happen is if he got shot in the spine. But if the lav mic is here and the exit wound is here, how did it go into his spine first? For Stu's theory to be correct, that lav mic would have to explode, then shoot a projectile backwards to hit the spine, and then ricochet off the spine to produce the exit wound out of the front of the neck. I don't know about that, guys. Seems...
And now people are saying drones as well. And again, no drones that were on or around the campus until I think it was hours later they started using drones. There should have been drones from the security detail or UVU. I do agree with that. There should have been people on rooftops. Yeah, all of that weird, but drone, it would have to be relatively close in order to, again, have that projectile reach Charlie Kirk. And then again, you have to question the fragments yet again that were retrieved. And I don't buy it.
Like,
there's no footage of any drone that was on or around the campus at the time of the shooting, close to Charlie Kirk. And if there is, please show it to me.
Kind of a stretch.
And show, you know, where the projectile, where you know, it's confirmed that a projectile was released, etc. I'm interested. I'm open to it.
And the wound, if that's the exit wound, it's on the front of Charlie's neck. It's right next to his Adam's apple. So how could a lav mic on the front of his shirt right here produce an exit wound next to his Adam's apple? This shooting a projectile would barely graze his Adam's apple. Otherwise, you'd see an entry wound and it would probably shoot out of the back somewhere. It would not be shooting out right here from this spot here. There's no way that that's possible. And you can see the trajectory of a projectile from here. Where is it entering in the body to produce a hole next to the Adam's apple? It doesn't make sense. This looks like a bullet entered the front of his neck. There's no other way to get this angle from this side of the body.
And drones, even the small ones, are loud. So even at the Freedom Convoy, like I was waving to the drones, like you can hear them coming from like fairly far away, like if you have good hearing. I've seen them and heard them well in advance on dog trails, on a heritage site. Yeah, you can hear them like pretty far distance away, even the quieter ones.
And if that's the explosion, the moment of the explosion, and they claim that that white part right there is smoke, how is his shirt not damaged? How's there no scorching? How's there no ripping, no nothing to the shirt itself from an explosion? And whether you believe it or not, it is hard to believe. But the surgeon said that they found the bullet during surgery in Charlie's neck, stuck in his vertebrae, basically. But if Peter's theory is correct, the bullet would have went from the lav mic out the neck and nothing stuck in the vertebrae, right? So somebody here is lying, or somebody here is just wrong. And let's not forget, Candace swears that she saw the footage from that camera right behind Charlie. And she said there's no blood on the back of his neck. There's no exit wound on the back of his neck, which would validate what the surgeon said, that the bullet got stuck in his vertebrae. But if Stu's theory is correct, and if we know for a fact that the only way you can stiffen up like that is if you get hit in the spine first, the bullet would have had to go backwards into his neck and then ricochet off the vertebrae forward out of this side of his neck. That's the only physical possibility for Stu Peters' claim to be factual. Also, do you realize how flimsy that thing is? It's just hanging off of a t-shirt. There's no support, there's no backing. Like if it's to explode and shoot something out, it would move as it explodes. You're telling me that they risked not even hitting him with the projectile just because it's on a flimsy t-shirt, which the wind could blow?
And like as an exit wound too, like where's the projectile, the fragments, right? Like moving forward, like did they find it? Anyways, just there's so much
around. Stu also claims that that white mass right there underneath the shirt is smoke from the explosion. But honestly, I've never seen smoke act like that. And that's definitely not how the smoke acted after the explosions of the pagers. This is what smoke looks like from the pagers exploding. Also, that guy's bag got torn apart. Charlie's shirt didn't even have soot on it. That is what smoke looks like from the pagers. That guy's in pieces. And you can't say, oh, Charlie's explosion wasn't smoky because it was contained under the shirt. This guy's pager was in a bag. This guy's pager is under his shirt, tied to his belt loop. A lot of smoke. So obviously something does actually happen with Charlie's shirt when he gets shot, and it looks pretty interesting, right? But is it more likely that there's a bomb under his shirt that kind of produces contained smoke and then shoots a bullet that hits the back of his spine and then ricochets out the front of his neck? Or is it just a shockwave from a dude getting shot right above the collar of the shirt? So when it hits, it produces a shockwave and blows his shirt up. Which one of those do you think is more reasonable? Listen, I'm all about a good conspiracy, and I definitely want to get to the bottom of what happened to Charlie. I also think there's some like gaping holes in the mainstream narrative that's put out there. But honestly, I just don't think this is the explanation. I don't think that this is a bomb that shot something into his neck. I don't think the trajectory supports it. So definitely, let's keep asking questions. Let's keep the pressure on. Where's the FBI in all of this? How are they not coming out and putting any of these like conspiracies to rest?
Yeah, that was good. Right, back to the video, because I don't want to leave any stone unturned to any of the arguments they want to bring up.
It was sunglasses got broken. Well, we've proven it wasn't sunglasses, right? Well, I'm not going to say proven. It's been lots of people who are experts in that say, no, that wouldn't be the sunglasses. They don't break like that. People who know about that. So that's what, so it didn't come out of nowhere, but I think what Viva's saying that, yeah, that's certainly the case. People who are doing a cover-up will often try to amplify a half-truth or so they could be easily knocked down, and then anybody who questions it looks like a mental case.
Well, and that particular one is, given the nature of the Rode Wireless Pro, It has an onboard local recording, which should definitely be there and is tremendously high resolution. And it should have put out a signal, presumably to either the board or to a camera that would have been recorded also. Those two pieces of evidence together would be tremendously useful either in establishing Tyler Robinson's guilt or establishing that something beyond the official theory of the crime took place. By the way, I'm using theory there because theory of the crime is the way it's described. When I put forward something, I'll say hypothesis because it tells you exactly what the toolkit is. But one utility of the explosion.
Mike Glover, he's on YouTube as Mike G. I would highly encourage people to take a look at his assessment of the Charlie Kirk assassination because he is someone that is very credible and does have an expert knowledge of firearms.
Floating Mike hypothesis being so widely circulated is it does cause people to stop asking the question about where's the damn mic. And if that mic was active, it produced evidence. That evidence is of very high quality, and we've heard not word one about it as far as I know.
Well, also, just one more thing, if I may.
Because it's not relevant.
And the reason why it's not crazy for people to entertain that hypothesis.
Just like his necklace wasn't relevant to his murder. Just like his T-shirt wasn't relevant to his murder. Why would they introduce it into the courts? If they have bullet fragments and they have a DNA match, they have the firearm, they have the other weapon. Like, come on.
Of an exploding mic was because they can't match that gun to the bullet fragments that they claim they found, and also that gun was not. The cops who were looking for that gun could not find it. The dog sniffing guns, who can find a gun that was shot a week later in the rain, couldn't find it. But the moment the FBI shows up, there's the gun. So that's why so you can see why people would think it's plausible, very plausible, that it wasn't that gun, it wasn't that shooter, and it was something else. Maybe it was that shape charge, maybe it was a direct energy weapon, maybe it was so all these things I think need to be 100% explored. And like Brett said earlier, if you do, you're called a mental case, you're called your moralities charge, challenge, stuff like that.
No, so I want to. Sorry, Viva, I'll come right back to you, but I just want to.
I don't think a laser would cause that kind of a wound.
Lodge this point. If we had a functional FBI that was actually interested in investigating what happened during this crime, then the question about how long the crime scene remained cordoned off would be as you describe it. But the problem is you don't have an FBI. You have an FBI that after Butler was washing the roof.
Washing the
frickin' roof. So the point is we don't have an FBI. I don't know why that is or how it happened. But
well,
the fact
worse than with Butler, by the way, this is a point that I put out is I don't blame people for going. I call it the conspiratorial psychosis because I think at some point it stops being productive and it starts being harmful for the individual and for the truth. When I can't blame people for going down this conspiracy psychosis because you had this FBI. It's not Biden's FBI telling you that Thomas Crooks had no social media footprint. And then when Tucker Carlson and Brianna Morello report that he did, instead of addressing it, they create an FBI response thing on X to go out and try to discredit Tucker Carlson, Brianna Morello, and Miranda Devine. And so they don't like hearing it, but a lot of the propensity to believe whatever the hell people want is facilitated by what this administration and the DOJ has done to eviscerate any trust that anyone thought they were going to have in this iteration of the institution. And it allows people to believe whatever the hell they want because it's a post-truth world right now. They don't even have to have evidence to substantiate it.
That's why I'm pleading with people to use a scientific toolkit, because the point is, okay, absent an FBI, you need to exert logical discipline over how you process the evidence. And what I see amongst those who are focused on conspiracy is anything that would contribute to your view of the crime is promoted as true. rather than some sort of an evaluation about which of these things actually are evidence, which of these anomalies are of a standard magnitude, and if I can connect back to the anomalies with the Butler shooting. Okay, in Butler, they told us the reason that roof wasn't covered was that it was too steep. One of the craziest things that's ever been said. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But
a sloped roof.
Here again, though, we don't have a sloped roof. We have a perfectly flat roof. Has the person who decided not to cover the roofs been fired? Who is that person? Why is there not a discussion?
Like, I don't know. I'm going to share Mike Glover's assessment that happened. It was that day. Former Special Forces, I believe. Okay, because I'm going to back it up.
Test.
Yeah, streamed that day.
Okay, I think. Are we live?
So you got to give him some credit. I'm
Says
going to
we're
share
live.
the live feed as well. Okay, so it says, okay, what's up, Mike? Pray for Charlie. Praying Charlie is okay. Bro, the video is so graphic. Yeah, I remember it was just, okay, so someone saying he died. Oh my God, Mike, this is horrible. What happened? Damn, just horrible. Pisses me off, Mike. People are saying other things. People are crazy. So sad. Okay, so I'll just let him keep talking.
Yeah, just go ahead and send it.
Well, he's not talking yet.
Check
Sorry.
if,
Chat, can you guys hear me?
Okay, so he's gone, guys. Test. Demons are amongst us. Is he dead?
5x5. Yep, we're good. All right, let's get this up. Let's get this ball rolling.
People there are also saying like he did not die. Praying for Charlie and his family.
What's up, guys?
Come on, guys,
Yeah,
it's confirmed.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to lay this out for you guys. Let's go ahead and get to YouTube. Look, nobody's showing this video except on X that I've seen. Primarily, I'm not going to be able to show you guys the video because I'll get instantly banned, but I'll go on to the links here. And Julian, my sub window, my lower window is good, right?
Yeah, bro got cooked right in the jugular. Another trans shooter.
Julian.
Thing.
You're muted.
yeah, it should be good.
Okay.
Video is rough. People are saying, yeah, it was. Ugh. Yeah, people are talking about the old white man apprehended. The close-up video. Of the next
I'm not going to be able to
one
show
is
you guys
Instagram.
the video,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go over some of the things that are going on in real time right now. And yeah, just like you guys, I saw the video. There's two significant videos. One video where, and I'll cut this down because I know it's going to be there. It's muted. All right, so there's two videos going on right now. One of the videos is a video
Someone's saying it was a rifle.
a further away perspective where Charlie Kirk, who's at the University of Utah, sitting in a chair. There's one report of one round from a
People are questioning if it would have happened had he not been showcased on South Park.
rifle. That rifle is very distinct. That rifle was either 5.56 or 308. I mean, if he
See, it was 30-06. And so, but again, he's watching this. He's doing this live.
was muffled
It's still very similar caliber.
by being suppressed, it was 308. It's hard to tell. I can't personally tell from it, but it for sure is a rifle. When he's sitting in the chair, he just finishes the word. I think the last word he said was violence. And he was just talking about mass shootings, and he takes a round. Now, what you see is his shirt rise. That's the energy that's likely incoming that hits him straight in the neck. And that's very significant because, look, there's only a couple of ways that you're going to survive a rifle round. In the extremities and a grazing wound, like Trump in Pennsylvania. A round in the arm or leg. You take a round through your pressurized chest cavity, Not a good
People like Tim Pool were alleging that Charlie Kirk was stable. Again, incorrect.
outcome. In fact, it's harder to stop an internal bleed. Don't think about the puncturing of the chest. Think about the actual depressurization of the chest and the bleeding in the chest, which is nearly impossible to stop. In fact, you don't stop it. You use a chest tube to push inside the person's chest to suck the blood out, and then you have to have a high level of care. Now, allegedly, and I'm tracking this stuff in real time, guys, with points of contact via our new Substack, which is Dead Drop Intel, which I will give you guys the link to that. Right now, it is alleged that he is in critical condition. Now, I'm looking for any single piece of information that I can get that tells me otherwise. If you guys hear anything other than that, let me know. I think we got one say that Ski is saying he's stable. Now, for sure, the carotid
People saying you can actually survive that shot.
artery was hit on impact. You could see that if you haven't seen the video. He gets hit, his head goes immediately back. That's the energy of the round, the velocity of the round, all that energy going into his body. He immediately kicks his head back and starts gushing blood out of the side of his neck. I was able to, it is horrible footage. I was able to watch the video, but also saw post the scene, there was blood. Now, significantly, you see two of his personal protection detail, his PSD, one that was in the crowd and one that's offset to his right, run towards him. These dudes, I actually know a couple of the guys. In fact, one of the guys that we work with on this Substack on Dead Drop Intel, it was on his PSD. He told me just now that a lot of his PSD was young and inexperienced. If one of those guys was able to get to him and as soon as they put their hands on him was able to stop the bleed, he could possibly survive. Now, I know a lot of people are seeing that video and they say, there's no way he survived that. If you watch it, it's a horrible video to watch because immediately there's blood pouring out of his carotid artery. Now, that feeds, obviously, blood to the head, blood to the body. You would have to get your hand on there, apply pressure, and stop it out the gate.
Yeah.
Now, did he get there in time? I don't know. Look, I'm just going to make the opinion that's probably not as popular. That does not look survivable to me. Based on what I know about engaging bad guys, ballistics.
He, again, knew and knows guys from the PSD detail. He's done the work himself. He's a veteran, special forces, a gun expert. And is Jimmy Dore or Candace Owens platforming him, or Stu Peters, or no? And I don't know why. Like, are you guys not listening to what I'm listening to? Like, he is an absolute credible source. Anyways, and I'm looking at the live feeds as well.
And what I saw, the reason I'll say that is because one, he hit.
And I didn't actually even see this video before. I've seen another one that he did the next day. And I was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so, like, even with this, I was doing my own assessment. So, like, I didn't, like, so the day that he was putting this out, I was, like, doing my own analysis and looking at witnesses and people working the detail and all of that stuff. Everything that was starting to get released.
The most Autobahn artery for blood in the body. It's a highway for blood. It feeds the brain and the body. When that connection is severed.
Yeah, only a miracle. Yeah, low survivability. People were saying it at the time, even before it was confirmed that he was dead.
The arterial bleed that you're used to seeing is typically a sever. And it typically looks like a pulse. So it's with his heart rate, it's pulsing out, right? What you saw was a complete severing of the freeway, which is why it was gushing out. The reason I think that's not survivable is because even if they were able to apply pressure, once it's completely severed, you would need surgery to repair that. Blood would be flowing out of the head and then from the body.
People saying that to, like, apply pressure, like, he's saying that even that, right? Like, would may not work, but might make things worse.
Which is why you see that pouring out, and there would likely not be enough time, even if they moved him from his position onto an operating table. Obviously, they have to stop the bleed, and move him
Yeah, it says you do see his neck expand out with the impact.
to an ambulance that's going to move him to an operating table, which I can tell you right now at University of Utah, that's going to take 20, 30, even longer. Best case scenario, minimum 30 minutes for him to even get into the hospital, to get into a surgery situation. And that's just everything was prepped. So the reason I don't think there's a high probability is it's just too much time. Now, if he grabbed his neck and he was
And even his
conscious,
assessment, they got there a lot quicker than what he even assessed that it would possibly take for time.
just potentially something different. Also, you notice he went limp. When you go limp,
Well, sorry, I keep on cutting him off. I'm going to stop it as saying that if it was intentional to hit the exact spot, he probably was aiming for head and missed head and hit the neck by luck.
that, it's telling me a few things. His central nervous system was potentially compromised. Now, it could be the energy from the round, and that's a lot of velocity in the neck.
Yeah,
but if he took that round in the neck where it appears to be, it potentially severed his spine. Now, again, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but the reason I'm just saying this as somebody who does reacts videos, who's been educating some of you guys for years, is I'm just basing it off of my perception, my opinion from my experiences. Now, what's the more significant issue here? I pray for Charlie Kirk and his family. He's out there trying to spread truth, in my opinion. I like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
The fact that he has focused his attention on influencing and educating the youth that have been completely galvanized by lunatics in our colleges that are perpetuating this radical ideology that is not going to benefit any of these young men and women into adulthood, into like living in the real world. This is going to galvanize his base, his supporters, and likely the country. And that's not going to be good. MSNBC just reported this, that they speculated it could have came from a rogue supporter shooting his firearm in celebration. I mean, can you just take that in for a second? Just let that sink in. Can you fathom
See, someone's saying caliber sounded like 30-06.
That a radical left-wing organization that's a propaganda arm for lunatics is coming out saying verbatim that they think it's probably likely from this. I could name a dozen situations in the past year, starting with Butler, Pennsylvania, all the way to now, where there has been a manifestation of radical ideologues implementing their ideology into executing, assassinating, and murdering other people.
Yeah.
And that's the state of affairs that we're living at in this country. One guy said, no way did he have a long gun on the yard. Look, you could have, who said that? Josh. You could have a truck gun this big. You could have a truck gun this big. What I do know is it came from an elevated position. The suspect, who has been identified, and the video has been released on X. In fact, I'll get you guys this rolled up. It's going to be. He appears to be like an old dude.
Yeah,
he's like 60.
But again, this is like when it was all first coming out. Again, this is live, so like you're literally like that's what a lot of people thought at first. A lot of people were misreporting, even that Charlie Kirk was alive. So even AP and others were saying it. A lot of people are so upset in the comments. I don't know if you see them live.
80+ years, 70. Yeah, they say the suspect's in custody. Let me see if anybody else is showing this guy. It's interesting. Like, I want to do the real news. I want to show you guys, but I'd be banned if I did that, if I actually showed you the video that I wanted to show you. All right, let's just take a gander. He's wearing military-style boots, jeans, and a shirt. Is that a hood, guys? Does that appear to be a hood?
But again, even the fact that like there was no rifle with him. So that's something that could have been dismissed immediately. Like there was no rifle retrieved from this old man. on or around him. And yeah, I remember this day, like I was gone and I was in a no reception zone. So when I got back, like this is when I was getting all this information. But anyway,
I can't tell what that is. So Josh is. Oh, that appears to be his hat. You could have a AR-10 platform. I mean, AR-15 platform, AR-10 platform. The upper and lower receiver with a mil-spec style tube is about this big. It could be in a form factor of 6 inches at a minimum, and for sure at that distance, he could absolutely have engaged him with a rifle. It for sure was not a pistol. If it was a pistol, it came out of a subgun. But the sound of that, which let's get the report up on this.
he's good.
The report.
This is on the fly, and he's already reporting it much more accurate than anyone except for me.
Which is the sound that you hear from the rifle.
Okay, I want you to hear this. So shut up.
Here it is right here. We'll go ahead and roll this and see if I can get. Let's see if we can get the. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so look, I'm gonna roll this tape, guys. I'm just warning you guys because some people who follow me are real young. Warning: graphic content. It's coming from New York Post. But let's go ahead and play this video and then pause it and see if we could see anything coming from this. Okay, I'm gonna pause it right here. Now, where this guy is shooting his camera from, which I'll back it up right here, you can see him zoom into Charlie Kirk. So this is his perspective. That shot came from behind him. The reason I'm speculating it's a rifle is, one, it sounded like a rifle. Two, the amount of energy that hit Charlie Kirk is a rifle. And three, the ability for you to engage somebody at this distance would require a red dot variable magnified optic or a red dot at a minimum. And so this, I can't tell exactly because the perspective is skewed by the focus of the camera, could be 50 yards, 50 to 100 yards. Let's go ahead and continue to roll it. Okay, so this is his main PSD guy. You see this guy all the time. And I've actually worked with this guy, I believe, in a former career field. He's got one here, and he's got this guy right here, and he's got this guy right here. I don't know if they're going to show this, but I saw this guy run to Charlie, and I saw this guy run to Charlie. Now, guys, this isn't the president of the United States. These are private security experts that are running to protect and save Charlie Kirk, a private citizen. That's pretty impressive. Charlie must take care of them, and they must believe in the mission, but they also have a job. Let's go ahead and roll it. Warning you, this is probably going to be graphic because I don't think they're going to blur this out. Okay, they did blur it out. So you hear that one shot. That shot is either from a suppressed 5.56 gun or a 308. It's a rifle round for sure.
Rifle round for sure.
He gets hit in the neck, his head slumps, and he immediately falls to the ground.
And it was approximately 140 yards away.
So look, everybody is looking this way. So guys have said,
evidence.
I saw you guys say it, there's no way he got that rifle in. It's a backpack gun. That's easily capable of being broken down from the upper and lower receiver and would fit in a day bag this big. How good do you think security is on this campus? It's not. I mean, Charlie Kirk isn't the president of the United States. He doesn't have an advanced team that's looking at all the elevated positions. And you can see there's elevated positions here. This guy could have easily just walked over here from the tree line, set up his rifle, and broke a shot on Charlie Kirk. You can see right here, there's tons of students in elevated positions, and they're not going to have.
Yeah, people are already starting to disagree with him regarding the 5.56 in a shorter barrel.
Checkpoints. They're not going to have snipers on rooftops. What they're going to have is local protection as a security detail to protect him from mostly people spitting on him, yelling at him, or charging him. But nobody would think that a person with a rifle would get this done. I'll continue to roll it. That's distinctly a rifle round.
Distinctly a rifle round.
All right, here's the suspect being rolled up.
Not the suspect, but again, we find that
Oh,
out
he's not in
later.
jeans. Psych. This dude's in shorts, a shirt.
Good observation.
Appears to be 70 years old.
Good observation. 71.
Look, here's a great example. I don't know where his booth was, but look all of this elevated positions around here. Look at these people trying to record. I don't know if she's trying to record something. Yeah, plenty of elevated positions to be able to take that shot.
Elevated positions. Oh, yeah, the guy's pants fell down, yeah.
All right, so let me just cover this quickly because I hate talking about problems and no solutions. This is a perfect example of what not to do. Your children, your brothers, your sisters, your family, your friends that don't understand this, educate them. If they're ever in a circumstance where this type of thing happens, where it is unknown if he was a sole independent shooter, attacker, or if there was multiple shooters or attackers, this could have been a full-scale attack. Now, the first thing we want to do is observe, prepare by taking in the situational awareness around us, process that information while you're moving your physical ass off the X. Mm-hmm. There is no benefit to staying anywhere near this. Don't make it to your car. You don't need to go to your car because you'll get gridlocked. You don't need to run into a building and hide under a desk. You need to displace like you're about to go on a 5-mile jog. Yeah. Put your earbuds in and continue to move.
Don't put your earbuds in.
You could advise your family and friends, everybody, of what's going on while you're moving your physical body. All these guys right here, they're trying to observe. They got their cell phones out. They're trying to see what's going on. And if there was a complex attack as part of this.
People are reporting because 3 people were shot at a Colorado high school that afternoon as well. That was at the same time. Crazy.
Initiation, they'd be dead. I'm going to continue to roll it and let it finish, and then we'll get off into any breaking news. Yeah. A lot of people report it is as fireworks. It's not fireworks. It's shots for show. All right, let's see if we got anything else. Let me go back to you guys here and see if I can get you guys questions. Joseph says he is passed. Has that been has that been populated? Can anybody provide me the link if that's actually being released? I'm gonna go ahead and check my updates. OODA loop. OODA loop is a great way to identify what to process. I use OPS, observe, prepare, survive. It's a little bit easier to wrap your head around, but you do need an explanation, just like you do with OODA loop. Let me see. I got an update. Yeah, it's just more of the videos. Let's see if anybody else from Dead Drop has reported anything. Okay, Tim Pool is saying he's in stable condition. I just can't fathom that anybody is saying that he's stable.
People are already saying that leftist lunatics are celebrating absolutely disgusting.
That would be hard for me to believe, but I mean, miracles happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, if somebody applied direct pressure to stop the immediate bleed, and as soon as they contacted him, if that person was able to apply direct pressure, there is a chance of surviving that. But everything would have to go perfectly. I hope he did survive. I pray that he did.
So now they're finally saying that the old man wasn't the shooter. That was quick.
Some are reporting critical but stable. Stable condition just means that, you know, he's got blood pressure. He's going into surgery. Turning Point says he's in the hospital, but it doesn't look good. For sure, a jugular hit. All right, let's go back to the news, guys. I'm going to see if there's any more live. critical condition from the AP. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what the news is saying. See, that irks the crap out of me, man. That video should be played on a lot, just like this Ukrainian gal was killed in Charlotte, North Carolina by this attacker. This egregious, insane attack where this dude stands up with his pocket knife nonchalantly with all the no cares in the world. It looks like he's about to go on a hike. He just stands up, he takes the knife, and he just starts thrusting it into her neck. That should be live streamed all across the country on every news organization so you could see the reality and the truth of what's going on in our country. Nobody wants to pay attention. In the inner city of Chicago, as the mayor is saying, nothing to see here, 11 people last week were murdered. 11 people in one city murdered. In fact, it's funny because Brandon, the old mayor, moved himself and his family to Austin, which has more violent killings in it than any city really, or any neighborhood really in America. But nobody wants to report on that. So they're saying it's so violent, it's so grotesque, it's so traumatic to watch. That's what we need to do. We need to see this because this is what's happening in our own backyard, literally my own backyard. What I was going to pull up is UVU. Yeah, here's the UVU campus in Orem. And this is my house right here. It is about a 35-minute drive from here in Heber City down to here. And look, for all those who say nothing is happening in Utah because all the crime is happening in the inner city, or these things happen all the time in Utah. A BLM protest happened in Provo, and a 70-something-year-old man was shot in his chest with a .380 from a white protester during a BLM protest while this old man was just trying to get to work. He stopped. He didn't know what was going on. He got scared. He tried to drive away, get shot in the chest. That's Provo. And this is Orem at the UVU campus right here. Now, I try to look at the imagery. It's kind of hard to see exactly how this lines out. I'll move it to, let's see if we can move it to,
No sound.
like if you're looking at Charlie and he's looking at you, it's like you walk around to your right and you're staring at the left side of his head. You see him get hit and turn and slump, and it shows the timing of how long it takes for his PSD to get to him. I mean, they move to him immediately, but he gets hit, he slumps, and he sits there for a period of time before he falls over. Now, the reason I think it's unlikely that he's going to survive is based on that first hit. If he was not hit in anything vital, he would have still been conscious, and you would have seen some kind of reflex response of his arm going up, grabbing his neck. There's none of that. He gets hit, and as soon as he gets hit, he goes limp, which to me means he was hit in a vital part of his body, and a piece of round shrapnel or the bullet in mass compromised his central nervous system. Now, let me line this out for you guys as professionally as I can. It's just like hunting. There's two means of getting the desired end state in hunting. When you hunt big game, I hunt big game like elk. When you shoot elk, when you hit them from the side, you penetrate their chest cavity and their pump house. And when you do that with an arrow or with a round, there is a period of time in which they are going to get a spike of adrenaline, run, fight, or flight, and then they're going to be down immediately, depending on the placement of that round. But if you miss that pump house and you hit the spinal cord or the head, what you see is a neurological impact, and everything shuts down instantaneously. I won't give you the analogy out of respect for Kirk on this with people, but I want you to understand something. When somebody gets hit like that and they slump like that, it's likely their central nervous system was compromised. Now, there is a chance that the velocity and the impact knocked him unconscious because of where it landed, but I find that highly unlikely because it looked like he got hit. There was a potential central nervous system compromise, and he slumped. A normal reaction is a flinch response, like Tony Blauer teaches, which is I'm going to flinch and my arm's going to jerk up. I'm going to bring my hand to my neck. He didn't do any of that, and that is a sure sign.
I made a comment. It's kind of funny. Crazy how many couch combat medics are in the chat.
Of central nervous system
Anyway,
compromise.
but
And again, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. I'm just giving you my perspective on this as it's lined out. Let me get some of you guys' input. So some of you guys are rolling around the interwebs. Yeah, the latest reporting, and I'm sorry, I thought you guys were hearing that live feed. The latest reporting right now from the AP, the Associated Press, is that he's in critical condition. Critical condition is not good. And I will tell you this, I told my chat group, actually the Family Unity Act chat group, that if they put it out and it was going to be released, it would take a while because they would have to notify next of kin, and that a doctor would have to come in and pronounce him deceased, and then that starts notification processes.
Yeah.
Now, information close hold to him would be potentially leaked, and that hasn't happened. We haven't seen that, but again, there is a chance that this could happen, and it could take a while for it to be released. Again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Let's talk about the potential fallout because there's going to be a lot, guys. Oh, okay. I'm doing a live today with Survival Dispatch. I'm actually going to get the link for the live so I can plug it into the description or to the chat for this. Let me hit up Chris. Send me link to live. I'll distro on live feed. Okay, I've been doing live feeds with a organization called Survival Dispatch with Chris Heaven. Khalid Muhammad, Sarah Adams, Jane Doe, a whole bunch of these intel experts have been on the panel. We're doing dead drop intel, but we've been talking about the potential fallout and what would happen with a domestic terrorist attack. Now, when we say domestic terrorist attack, there's several courses of action and several different players. Let me give you three significant players. Domestic terrorist, radical human beings who've decided on their own accord to hurt other Americans because they've been radicalized. That is in combination with crazy people who have lost their mind who are doing this every weekend in the inner cities. But most significantly, a radical ideology that's political, personal, and trying to create mass casualties potentially. The second, and this is in no order of hierarchy or priority, the second is a jihadist. A person, remember the jihadist movement never went away. While we were sitting idle and abandoning billions of dollars of equipment in Afghanistan, the enemy, you ever heard of that poem, The True Believer? That's what the enemy's been doing, is training while we've been screwing around with politics. While we get more radicalized and upset at a Karen taking a baseball from a kid than we do on pressing issues that are impacting national security and potentially your lives. The jihadist movement didn't go away. And the intel experts, not me, because I am not an intel expert. The intel experts have all determined, based on the assets they have in place and the open source information they're getting, that...
So even someone that was talking to a veteran and a combat medic, I agree, even if they packed it immediately, he would have had a snowball's chance in hell of making it, poor guy.
This dynamic has changed profoundly. That for sure, there is going to be another 9/11 in the near future. And I'm in agreement with them based on their expertise and their assessments. Lastly, I mean, there's never a last, the cartels. Guys, there was 600 Sinaloa cartel members arrested and the biggest DEA drug bust in decades. Why is that impactful? Because the Sinaloa just fell because 17 family members basically turncoated and are now being offered likely witness protection, while other cartels like the Zetas are taking over. There's many of these organizations that are taking over. 600 of them were arrested because the headquarters dissented and said, here's where everybody's at. That is just a taste, a small sampling of the embedding of terrorist, radicals, and cartel members that are now foreign terrorist organizations that are embedded in our country. You think Tren de Aragua yesterday was just a bunch of drug dealers. Today, we're nearly at war. We're likely in a proxy war or a covert war against Venezuela. You think those Tren de Aguaguas, those TDA members in the country aren't planning to take advantage of the opportunity to seize the moment? The analogy I used on my Patreon, and just stick with me here, is this is like a bully confronting, a person who's been bullied confronting the bullies on the playground for the first time in their life. The analogy is, for once, we have somebody who's willing to stand up for the right, but there's going to be consequences. You think you're going to get through this without an ass beating, without a conflict, without a fight? It's happening right now. And not only are we confronting one bully, but because of the lack of competence, the lack of doing the right thing with all of the things, the pullout of Afghanistan, the corruption, the
disaster,
deep state getting deeper and deeper and deeper, what we've done is we've littered the playground with nothing but bullies. So at the same time, I'm like, yes, finally somebody's standing up for the right. I'm also understanding that there's going to be consequences to these actions. And what we've managed to do is isolate and empower adversaries. Putin, Kim Jong-un, and President Xi, walked out on the stage together in the biggest parade they've ever held in their history, celebrating the 80-year anniversary of the fall of the Japanese Empire. Except we are the ones, Americans are the ones that made sure that the Japanese would never hurt anybody, can't do what we do here. But my ass is moving the hell away from everybody. I'm trying to get as far away from all of this craziness as
us. And then,
how scary was this? What was the mood there?
And then that's when the shot came, and then we just saw his head jerk back and shoulder.
He's alive. Mega butter.
And we immediately just turned and dropped to the ground, and then saw people start getting up and running. So we followed in with that, and were able to get to the apartment buildings and get in with a really kind girl that started driving us. And then,
how scary was this? What was the mood there?
It was just really terrifying. I mean, I was kind of in shock, because I was like, no way that just happened, But I'm definitely very grateful that there was only one shot and stuff, or outside things that a lot more people could have been injured.
Okay, thank you very much. And where were you at, and what did you hear there and see?
Yeah, I was with Kaya, and we were just 50 to 100 feet to the left, and just heard a shot, and then just saw his head fly back, and he just slumped in his chair and saw blood coming down his shirt, and then just people just yelling, "Get down!" and then just see a flood of people going through these doors, so just ran and followed them.
Wow. We hear about school shootings or university shootings, those kind of things. To actually be in there when it's happening, your thoughts about that?
I mean, you just never expect it to happen. You're just going to this event. You're not expecting anything to happen. So it's definitely shocking when something happens like that.
Tell me about why Charlie Kirk. What was it about? You wanted to go hear him, or what happened there?
He's on social media. I've seen a lot of him do a lot of debates. We just thought it'd be cool to come see him debate a couple people.
Okay, thank you very much. And share with us where you were at and kind of what you saw.
Yeah, I was about 50 feet to it.
He's talking about, and he comes from a state of logic, and I respect that a lot. And so I've watched his videos for a while, for years now, honestly. So I think, he's a really interesting person. I was pretty excited to hear that he was coming to Utah so that he.
Okay, this is guys. I didn't see this perspective yet, but I'm going to roll this back. We got about 10 minutes left on the live. I want to roll it back a little bit and just give you some perspective. I have not seen this video. This is a video basically of some dude hanging out by the tent. You could see the blurred out section, which I assume is Charlie Kirk, where he's at, where he's being treated by his personal protection detail. But let's go ahead and roll it.
Questions other students at UVU had to ask, and what his response would be to them.
Well, I have not seen this perspective. I don't know if it's about to go down right here, but this is the bodyguard that you typically see with him. Actually, no, this is the other guy that's standing in front. The other guy's offset to the back and right, but this guy's asking a question. So we'll have one of his bodyguards staring at the guy who's on the mic asking the question. This is typically filmed for his YouTube channel, and then he'll answer the questions, and then they'll move on.
Really it.
Austin, you followed him a little bit more. Tell me just your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really respect Charlie as a person. He's a great person. He's a family guy, a good Christian. He has strong beliefs. They chatted a lot about religion right before it happened. I mean, there's only one question before.
So this is interesting. This is a perspective of the crowd migrating through this person who's videotaping, and then offset to the left, they're going to show the blur mark. So he's on the ground being treated. You're likely going to have these PSD guys. They have a contingency and a course of action already pre-planned on how to evacuate him and in a case of emergency, which Charlie has been evacuated. I've talked to some of his PSD before, guys that were in the area when things have happened, where he's had to been taken off the stage and evacuated back, but not under these circumstances. I imagine at this point you have one or two guys treating him, and then other guys getting vehicles ready to move him and likely straight to the hospital.
he got before the shooting. But I really think he's a great person, and he sticks up for what he believes in, and I respect that, and I enjoy watching him.
So he's right here, man. He's right here. It's kind of crazy because so nonchalantly this guy's videoing, and there's nobody around this. Everybody's just
what Utah's about, and have his support group here, because I know a lot of people really respect him here. So it's pretty sad that it had to happen here.
Well, I was going to say, just the fact that there was a shooting, he was shot at an event like this. Your thoughts about that?
Honestly, it's kind of shocking just seeing how many hundreds and hundreds of people were there in support of him. And, you know, I think it's really sad. I think people are trying to prove a point. It didn't change my thoughts on the right to bear arms at all. And so it's...
Let me just go over this real quick because I think it's important, guys. The acronym for EMTs or medics, especially in the military, changed years ago, over a decade ago, from airway, breathing, circulation. Typically, the focus would have been on the airway. It's now moved to massive hemorrhaging as number one. So stop the bleed is number one. Why? Well, your body is very good at figuring out ways through suppressed respiration, even with an occluded airway, to survive. But if you don't address the bleed, by the time you get through respiration, it's probably going to be too late. So the first thing you do is apply pressure, apply tourniquets, stop the bleed, and then focus on everything else. And these guys, which they don't show, which again is we need to be showing this stuff. Yep. They're likely treating him, trying to stop the bleed as quickly as they can. Now, the only thing I would say is based on the position of the tent, the stakes, he's in a pop-up tent. He's in a situation where he's squared up with the shooter. The round hits him, and you have these arteries that run, these carotid arteries that run down your neck, right? They're out of the way on the outside of your airway. If that was hit, that carotid artery was hit, which it appears to be hit, it's not potentially near the spine or the airway, which is center mass of your neck. Now, of course, if it's a 5.56 round, it's 5.56 or 45 in diameter. If it's a 308 round, it's 0.308 in diameter. And that's a very small projectile. So if it just punched a clean hole in that area and then started that bleed, as long as it didn't hit anything else vital, then there's a chance of surviving that.
But that didn't.
Now, my fear is that rounds, when they impact flesh and bone, do funny things, especially 5.56 rounds. They're very particular. That .223 round, very small, a lot of high power and velocity, 2,700 plus feet per second.
But it was a 30-06.
Second, or 2,550 plus feet per second. That round could have hit him, compromised the carotid, and then potentially tumbled into whatever, which is when I saw him slump like that, gave me the indication that it could be the central nervous system.
I mean, it seems like it was kind of for nothing, and I think people just want recognition, and they want to think they're...
Showed the side camera of it, so...
that basically would keep him from coming. And these are based at Utah State University, where he was scheduled to come later this month. The petition had 3,500 signatures. Students, hundreds reportedly today, are joining on that petition to ask board trustees at the university to prevent this Charlie Kirk from coming to their campus. And it's part of a national debate.
See, this is what pisses me off. I don't care about your petition. If you could have a radical leftist teach in the classroom to kids, then on a public campus that is tax funder funded, federally subsidized, if you could have anybody come there and they're doing a private event at that, I don't care how many petitions or signatures you have. You don't like it, don't show up. It's called the First Amendment.
Yep.
And so when he's talking, he communicates respectfully. He's not antagonizing people and trying to incite a riot. You see some of these radicals, they come and they do...
Yeah, people are saying... either 308 or 30-06.
Exercising or the First Amendment as they're calling for people to burn down cities. You have members of Congress openly stating it's time to fight. Yeah. 70-plus-year-old senior citizens who have been in Congress, who are making hundreds of millions of dollars in their portfolio off the taxpayers, are saying we need to fight and burn it down. And you're not okay with Charlie Kirk going to a public university to talk about issues that need to be counterbalanced on public campuses. Ludicrous.
Over controversial speakers coming on college campuses and universities' role in balancing the freedom of speech and them hearing these speakers versus protecting the safety of students.
And as we just heard from several folks, they wanted to come out.
You don't need to protect the safety of students from Charlie Kirk and his team. You need to protect the safety of students from radical, insane human beings who already know exactly what they're going to do. Now, I imagine what we're going to see from the left is the immediate jump on the bandwagon of gun control, and then the radicalization and making the assumption that this guy somehow is a right-winger lunatic. I was classified, and my organization, American Contingency, was classified as a militia violent extremist organization, an MVE. They called me a white supremacist. I don't know if they've seen me without my sunglasses on or from the waist down. I am half Korean. I'm half Asian. And I identify as a person who's Asian American. I'm an American first. But when you have these type of circumstances unfolding across our country, and then radicals coming out of the woodwork to promote more violence, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to turn this around and spin it, and then that's going to be a significant issue for supporters of Turning Point, of Charlie Kirk, and really freedom-loving Americans in this country. Look, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of people in political positions, like talking heads like Charlie Kirk. It's not that I don't like him. I like him. I just don't follow and watch all the stuff that he puts out. But I know for a fact that what he's doing, and even promoting a little bit of discourse and balance, is important for a national conversation, especially our youth. What's not acceptable is taking a weapon system and trying to take this guy out because they don't like what he's talking about. You see the compromising of liberties that we're seeing in the UK, Australia, and really Canada and everywhere in the world? That's going to be our country because there's going to be a significant terrorist attack. The government will use it to strong arm our liberties and freedoms, and we'll be under control. We'll be in a policed state. We'll have surveillance cameras everywhere. I mean, Utah's leading the way in surveillance cameras. They want to put it in every street corner in this state. I mean, yeah.
What attracts them to Charlie Kirk, because they're able to have this.
When he was shot?
Yeah, so
Opened up right around in this area.
That, but that was pretty traumatizing and stuff.
Let's see if we can finish it up with any of you guys' updates.
Something would happen like that right here at UVU. I mean, this.
Yeah, it's going to be posted, guys. Let's see if I have any top fans questions. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys. Look, I haven't done a live in a long time.
Okay, he's pretty much done after that. Long video. But yeah, like I would have liked to have seen more of that, or someone like Mike that would be on these types of podcasts with Brett Weinstein from Dark Horse, or Viva Frei, or, you know, anyone. So on that note, I will leave it at that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.